Bring the budget workshop to order. Ms. Rose, would you call the roll, please?
City Council President Suzanne Souter.
Here.
Councilperson Joseph Day.
Here.
Councilperson Nerman Zubaka.
Here.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt.
Here.
Councilperson Brian Mataway.
Here.
Also in attendance, City Administrator Antonina Tantillo and Finance Coordinator City Clerk Courtney Taylor.
Thank you. Well, again, I'll turn this over to Ms. Tantillo and Ms. Taylor because they're the ones who put this latest iteration of the budget together.
So when we spoke the last time, there were a couple of contribution requests that we made sure to include, with Encore, Community Couple Collaboration of Delaware. In your packet, you'll see that there was an email sent to us from Community Collaboration of Delaware, which further explains what they're seeking to do. At the last meeting, we talked about the NCCP request for 8,000 to match Encore's pursuit of benches in the park. And we decided that we put that into the park public works budget as this would be a city project. I did speak to a representative from NCCP and they said that they would like to work on that project with us. And if we needed additional funding than the 8,000, they would like to help us and contribute to that project. Separately for their contributions to them and our customer, they said that they would reach out a second request since we're not going to fund that 8,000 directly to them, but rather as a city project. So I'll be in touch once I get that update. But for the meantime, we did put 2,000 and to the contribution line just to have something there for it.
So that's a placeholder, but then the note included in 8,000 in the parks budget does not apply to this 2,000.
Correct. The 8,000 really, we saw it as like a request
Sure.
for actual facilities, for lack of a better term, in the park. That's where we put that. As it's the city's park and, you know, we would fund rather than indirectly giving it to them and then having them install it. It just seemed a little silly. So we put that on the end and then just put the placeholder of 2,000 for NCCP, but they may or may not. One of the largest things that you'll see,
Request for them or what?
I think they had 2,500. One of the largest things you'll see in the budget, which we didn't do at the past couple of meetings, was that we do have the placeholder for the public safety line items for salary and things like that. Those are this year's numbers. Those will not reflect the correct numbers that we will have for this anticipated budget. But we did put something in so that you can see the impact of the current salaries on this year's budget. And how that affects the overall bottom line.
What amounts how did you calculate to put it in here?
We just transferred current year numbers.
Oh, just current year.
Yeah. We'll have an update once that matter is
So
resolved.
clearly that's going to increase.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
increased.
the fact that we have a balanced budget with this number means we're in deficit by whatever the police salaries increase.
You don't have balance of it.
Well, this shows the balance, but it's not accurate because we know the police budget's going to go up.
Yeah, but even still with like these placeholder numbers, the budget is not.
It's still not balanced.
Yeah.
Correct, because I see the revenue fund total and the, that's just the income total. It's
Yeah, so you have to look at.
571, you have to look at the end of the,
I think we're over roughly. I think 1 million. And these are just placeholder numbers, like in all of these numbers, they are going.
oh, yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
Page 21, 6,248,029 versus 5,571. So yeah, it's like $800,000 deficit.
And that will certainly. go
And
up.
that will increase once we have a police contract.
Right.
So we have some serious reductions.
Right.
And so what did you guys project the revenue?
We threw in everything in the world that we
Right.
do,
If we get 100%
and we can't have it all.
I'm sorry, sir.
collected
I
percentage?
mean, it'd be wonderful to be able to give all these organizations everything they want, but it's not feasible. I think one of the biggest shocks I had my first year on council is how little discretionary income there is. By the time we pay salaries and building maintenance and vehicles and vehicle maintenance and insurance and all those fixed costs, there's not a lot left. And so it's kind of nice that we spend some time sort of dreaming big, all the things we'd like to do. That's a useful exercise. But
But then we're looking to add to staff because of,
well, now this projection includes the additional
Yeah.
2 people for public works and 1 more person in the office, is that right?
Yes.
And raises for some of the office staff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've included that in this, and we've included. Well, even if we eliminate the whole $99,000 contribution budget, we're nowhere close to balance.
Same numbers, but yeah.
So-
That's,
Made a couple of minor updates for area commission. We had put the same number as they requested last year, which was 20,000. So we initially put 20,000, but they did send us an update this weekend and asked for 30,000 plus, 30,500 plus 2,000 for the beautification committee to add, flowers and little plants to the planters along Delaware. All right, and yeah.
so they asked for an additional 10,000. What, did they provide anything on what that is?
Yeah, it's additional tree planting and
Maintenance,
increased costs, yeah.
They provided a 2-pronged budget for tree planting of new trees and another line for maintenance of
Yeah.
existing, so pruning and such. That's beyond the abilities of the public works staff. And the beautification committee used to be in the contributions list, and they got $2,000 to $3,000 a year to put the flowers in the planters around town. So tree commission has asked to take on that responsibility, but of course they need the funding to go with it.
But Andrew, and further into what everyone's saying, there's a big number of trees throughout the city, right? And so obviously people can have trees in their house, but then there's a number of trees like along the streets that technically are city-owned that have to be maintenance. Tree commission has a monthly meeting. Residents can petition them for pruning, cutting, etc.
Right. I mean, they have to be pruned to keep them away from the wires, to keep them from rubbing on people's houses. And if they become diseased, they have to be pruned and or removed, depending on how severe it is. And removing a tree in a tightly packed area like downtown Newcastle is very expensive. Because they have
Equipment,
equipment, they have to go up and lop off sections of it and lower it. They can't just cut the tree and yell timber. So.
we also added, I think, 2,000 to street materials, and that was for painting, for, crosswalks and other thing. Oh, bike racks. We talked about bike racks.
Oh, okay, so that's included in,
Street material.
oh, okay. Now, the bike racks would be, you hadn't determined the placement, you just
Yeah,
put some money
Just
in.
put a little bit of money in there to determine that. And then I also mentioned at the last meeting, I'll be pursuing grants, for bike opportunities, not just for us, but maybe other improvements. We also added,
We had some public.
We added the 65,000 to the dog park as discussed and voted on at the last meeting, to move the ARPA funds from Chestnut Street parking lot to the dog park. In addition to the 20 that was already appropriated.
So that's also then reflected in the revenue side. So it's a net zero for the bottom line. Okay.
And then
Just, okay, so this includes. Do you remember how much you included for bike racks?
1,000 for bike racks and 1,000 for, crosswalk.
So in looking at these again, projected numbers. If I'm looking at them correctly. There's about a hole of about 676,000. So I took the 6,248,029,
Yeah,
and then I took off the 5,571,16025.
yes.
I just want to make sure those are right.
So the deficit is how much?
676,000.
That's without, current negotiations.
Without the increased police.
676, 868,
68,
79.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you, Irene.
thank you. I'm about to do the math plus police increase.
A little bit after that, you'll see the advertising for mayor and council line be increased from 10,000 to 10,500 to account for like the William Penn shirt sponsorships that we did this past year. So we added that back in as well.
Well, on the previous page, I see that capital improvements / road repairs has 0 in it. At this point,
So we took out the 65 for the Chestnut Street from last year and moved that to the dog park. And we didn't have anything included. We did have bond bill requests that I submitted for street repairs. But I think it would be prudent to add something, even if we add like 20,000, just because road repairs are gonna come up. And I'm not saying 20,000 is gonna cover much, but just having it
That's intended to cover, not covered by municipal street aid. Right?
correct, municipal aid, and if we are fortunate enough to get anything from the bond bill.
Right, and just to clarify, since today was the deadline, all those have gone in, right?
Yes, yeah, I put in requests for over $2 million from the
Wow.
bond bill.
So we'll see how much we get.
We'll see, I don't think that the state has obligated any funds, for that yet. So we're hopeful that we'll get.
And-
something.
But did you reflect that request in the income section here?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we get that, then, but those budget items aren't in this either,
Yeah.
the expenditures, so
No.
it's like,
The, police department renovations we did request that for bond bill, but we also included it in the budget because they are.
hi,
Hello. Hi.
And storm drainage, like just while we're on that topic, this is a grant for like. Is that correct? Storm drainage, MS4, yeah. That's awesome. Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought I requested before that council at least be known what we submit for bond bill. But we are another year and I mean, I don't have any idea what we submitted.
Oh, I mentioned it last night. And I know I mentioned it at previous meetings as well.
But why aren't, I mean, we're the elected officials
Mhm.
and we have no idea what we asked the state for. Was that our priorities?
Well, I know that it's been brought to my attention that everyone wanted the playground. I've heard that from many people, and the streets are always a priority to put in.
Again, I just, as an elected official, I feel like we should be able to review that before it's submitted. I can't believe we went through another year and didn't really even have any idea what's submitted or whose priority it was. I think I've said this twice in the past meetings where I thought I said we should be able to review it before it gets submitted.
Okay. Well, I apologize. I thought I was clear as to what I was applying for, so I apologize.
I mean, I know we discussed various issues, but, you know, the playground and the street aid, but we never saw like the final itemized bill.
Okay, I can share that with everyone.
And maybe next year, if we can get started sooner, I know this was a tight year.
Yeah.
We can do that earlier, so
Right.
we can have more input.
Certainly.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I think that ties into if there's a place or space for council, team, if you will, to almost have like a visioning forward for like, again, you know, what are the priorities? What are we doing, you know, within the city? I don't know if that's could be done via workshop or.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it goes further than this, because when senator or the representative or somebody say, hey, I see you guys submitted for this. I don't have any idea what we submitted for, and I look like an idiot when I say, I don't know. And this is where I was in the past. Like, we're here to advocate for that stuff too, to advocate the General Assembly to give it to us. But if you don't know, you don't know.
I second this. I totally agree. I think it's already kind of said, but yeah, it would be great to be able to kind of get an insight on that, but, you know, I know that's.
What is the recommendation you guys have with our huge deficit?
Well, we certainly need to decrease a lot. I don't know if there are certain projects that you have in mind that can wait. I don't know if you want us to kind of narrow down each section, go back and review each section and then come back with a presentation, but again, we're not gonna have everything worked through because there's still negotiations on the plate side, so we don't know how much we're gonna have to.
Well, we're way off already without that, so
Correct.
I think we have a,
In respect to the revenue, is there any methodology that you all can speak to, like, as to how those figures were put in? Or, you know, placeholders? But again, that's like unknown, right? Is it just taking, 2% addition from the previous year, or what? Can you speak to some of that process?
I think for the revenue, kind of looked over what was going on in the past 5 years. Some of the revenues reclassified as revenue, but it's also on the expense side, so it just washes out. It's not really a revenue. And our main set revenue would be taxes. Everything else is questionable. I mean, we do get a lot from the past couple of years, transfer taxes. But I mean, that's just how the market is, and people just selling homes, but, other than that, we don't have a huge revenue. besides
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I do see on the property transfer tax,
Right.
that's page 22, the third line. We've been pretty conservative in estimating 350,000. And looking back over the past 5 years, it's ranged from 400 to 623, the most recent year, 611. So it might not be totally out of line to bump that up a little bit, maybe to 4 or something. But,
Yeah.
but that's 50,000 towards our deficit. I know that's a sort of a crapshoot because you don't know how the real estate market's going to be.
Right.
And we've had a couple of, in recent years, some large properties that changed hands that gave us big. And of course, we have no way of knowing if that's gonna happen again or not.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
certainly can't count
I
on it.
think we had about maybe 3 large properties this year, and that's kind of why that number is there. But, if we don't have large property, and I think one of them was several millions, but if we don't get that again.
Right. You can't count on it.
Two big unknowns are that and the interest, we have under budgeted 2 years in a row, right, for interest, page 24. So those two combined could be another $200,000-300,000, but it's really difficult to decrease it here without, because they both depend on so many factors that are outside of our control.
Yeah,
So-
and the interest has gone up significantly because of taking the ARPA as a revenue loss, and putting it into, our accounts. So as we use that, it's going to.
Right.
So we can certainly increase that some more if you would like, but again, there's no
I
guarantee.
wouldn't increase interest
Mhm.
just because of the 5-year look, right? I mean, clearly, there's a bump in 2023 for the reason you just mentioned, but that would be my recommendation. And even like to what Council President was saying, I would consider increasing to $400,000, but I wouldn't do more just because it's not gone over. Like, I'll be more comfortable doing a minimum of 4 years than putting somewhere around 600,000, which would be,
And
a risk, in a sense, so
And if
rather
we-
have more money later.
if we do 400 now, then when we do our mid-year review in January, if this revenue has come in at a higher level, we can make adjustments. But I don't think we can count on 600, for example.
No, it would be hard to, I mean, it may even be hard to say 400,
Right,
just because there is no guarantee.
Well, interesting thing to look at as well, it will be interesting to kind of color code stuff that cannot be changed in an expenses, which is kind of dental, health.
Yeah.
Stuff that's increased because of the, nothing to do with our city, just something to do with our entire state. So if we can pull those numbers aside, I think it'll be a good exercise, because that tells us how much increase is there that we cannot even decrease, we can't cut that by 5%, so we can go across and say, we're gonna cut everything by 5, make a little budget exercise to say, where can we cut stuff to, make priority lists and things like that, but there are some things that cannot be cut, so I think that's something that would be. And I had a question for you guys, where, the ARPA projects funded on the expense side, where do they show up in the revenue? And I feel like somebody just asked that, so I'm sorry, guys.
It should be, it's under your restricted fund, balance carry forward, page 24.
Okay, so 287, highlighted in yellow, is that,
And it went down because I took out the projector. Cause that should be done this current fiscal
okay,
year.
gotcha. But that includes the 20,000 for dog park, I'm assuming?
But they were 80,
They were doing 20, yeah.
the 55 in
Okay,
addition to
65.
Yeah.
Do you by any chance know what consists 287?
It is 90,000 for police cars.
And that was over 5 years.
Yeah, well, I only put this year,
Okay.
this coming years,
Expenses?
yes.
They're showing up an expense size, the 90,000, correct?
Mhm. $37,610.25 for the office design for the admin building. 85,000 for the dog park, 75,000 for the mobile stage,
So sorry, just checking, out the dog park, what did you say?
it's right here.
75,000 for the mobile stage.
It's on that sheet.
I know, but I'm asking for this particular 287 amount on page 24. I want to know what goes into that. This whole, honestly, 1.488. I just want to see what is budgeted for next year.
Yes.
Those ones, thank you.
Okay, just as an exercise, I took our deficit of 76,868, divided it by our expenditure projection of 6,248,029, and found out we're having 10.8% deficit. So in other words, we'd have to incur either combination, increase revenue projections or decrease expenditure projections by 10, call it 11%, in order to have a balanced budget, and that's without the police increase.
And that's 10% without what I just mentioned about health,
Well, no, the new health insurance premiums are reflected in that 6 million, right?
No, I'm saying, but we can't cut, it's gonna be more than 10%.
That's right, so we
Because we
can't
can't
cut
cut
that.
some of the,
Yeah, we can't cut that. There are many things we cannot cut.
so in reality, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It could be 10 if we're increasing the revenue we just mentioned for the property tax as well as the interest. But,
So, I know I have some questions and I know we answered these the last time, but please, bear with me. So on page 5, and this is, I believe, all salaries. So salaries, building code enforcement, we're currently at, 35 and our projected is 113 for next year or for the coming fiscal year. Is that just one person full-time or is that where we added a position? It's the first line on page 5.
So you're on salaries, building code enforcement.
Yes.
The new number consists of 2 employees, 2 full-time employees.
I think he's asking about the first line. Is that what you're asking about, Joe, is the first line?
Not supervision, you're asking about.
It just says salaries, building code enforcement, and it's gone from about, 54 to 113.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's with the new person, plus obviously
Okay,
Mr. Casal retired in March, so we haven't had that salary since then. The new person doesn't start till July 1, so obviously this year we're gonna be light in that.
but this is adding an additional one on
This is
top of
with
that.
an additional person.
Okay, and so then we go to the salaries, P-serve line. And we budgeted 415 last year, we're at 327 now, and we're projecting 438.
We
Okay, what
also
page?
added two.
Same page.
That's including all of our current staff and.
Oh, yes. So that includes two new, right? And that was,
So that doesn't seem like right though. So two new positions, you're saying?
and that was light this year because we had some months when we didn't have anyone, right? Someone left.
Correct.
I think we hired someone who left very rapidly,
Yeah.
and then there was another gap till we could pick up another person. So there was period where we didn't have that salary, right?
But if you were full staffed and it was budgeted for 415 this year,
Mhm.
438 isn't two new positions. It's only like a $23,000
Oh,
difference.
That's true.
I'll look back into an office, but that's what it. That's what it was, but I'll check into it.
Okay, and then, so then the other question I had was on 13. This is where I thought the two new positions were, and I could be wrong. On page 13, the top line, it looks like we appropriated 218 this year, and now we're at 364. And that's in administration.
Can you say that again, Joe? Where was it?
On page 13, the first category.
Okay,
So we allocated last year 218, or this fiscal year, I should say, we're at 184 in expenditures, and we're going to 364. That's the two new people, right, for the administration?
No, that's our current administration that we have.
That's with the new salary.
With the new
For
salaries.
this administrator.
It's $130,000 more than we budgeted
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, that's true, but
I mean, I understand we raised it and all, but it ain't $130,000 raised,
no,
is my question.
yeah, that's true. And of course, again, the reason the actuals are down is because of Mr. Bartel's departure, but yeah, you're right, that doesn't cover another, that more than covers the additional salary.
And I'm,
We have
I,
the other admin staff.
Right.
Well,
Oh, so it's an increase in some other admin
Yeah,
staff salaries.
It's not
as
just
well.
one person, it's several people that create that number.
okay, but even if it was 5, we're talking about we've increased $25,000 a person, which I don't believe we have.
We'll have to talk about it in
Okay.
an executive session.
And so then, the last question I had, and I know we talked about this before, I just didn't realize we were doubling it. Health, life, dental expenses for admin. We budgeted last year 28 and we're going to 64.
Health insurance went up 27%.
But that's more than 27% increase, and that's what the, assuming the
That's
extra
increasing.
person.
But that, you don't know what that employee covered, if they're covering spouse, if they're covering
Yeah, they
family
cover-
or children.
If they're planning.
We also have, Delaware's, family leave act is kicking in January. So that's a different-
Mhm.
But I just can't, each employee, they can cover someone different.
So that's another, the FMLA kicking in is part of that.
So, yes, and so, like I said, some employees, it's not just themselves, which the city does cover a certain amount of expense for
Right.
your spouse or children.
Joe, do you have more questions for the?
No, that's all.
I'm seeing a 60,000 increase in computer hardware IT services there.
I'm sorry,
On the same page, 13. I was earlier just trying to figure out what are the highest increases that we had, and I know that this is much needed. Is this something we can approve and like change to increase, but less so than what's budgeted here, and then review in the mid-year? As we know more about property taxes? I'm gonna ask the same question for a lot of other items,
Yeah.
but just, this
Um,
one seems potentially something we can maybe hold up. I don't know, but that's a question for you because you.
Yeah, we
you know
can
the-
certainly look into that. It will take a lot of time to, if we were to transfer to a new company and transition and go through that whole period. We're working to get quotes also with MSC, so I don't know the cost for that. I know that our costs right now are just to lab and the regular IT services, but to do a complete overhaul, it would probably require a significant amount of time. We just put that amount, but we can certainly lower it and try to work with that amount.
What I'm really proposing, sorry, Mayor, is kind of to go with maintaining what we have. And then mid-year review comes, and if we're doing okay, revenue wise. Then we can, start with increase this line so we can, get a new system in place and hardware and software that's needed.
I
So.
think part of
that's
that
kind
is working with MSC because they're on a
Yeah, that's what I'm
similar
saying.
timeline, so they're not waiting for our mid-year review, they're doing.
Yeah,
an
they want to
upgrade.
move quicker.
So it's kind of what, when you pave all the streets and not some, what is it, what is that, something of your resources because they're already out there, it's a little less expensive.
Efficiency.
Efficiency of, or some
Economies of scale.
economies of scale, thank you. I was,
I didn't know that MSC was bumped like under admin.
They're not.
Okay.
We have the same IT provider and we work with their technology.
Sure.
they back up to
We're gonna take
the city office.
Yeah, when they're done, I'm waiting.
No,
So the only thing I was gonna say is obviously we're, in this budget, we're adding 2 personnel to Public Works, which I 100% agree with. But is it possible that we add one July 1st and then we wait 6 months for the next one? Or we only fund, 50% for the year, so we can kind of scale that down? A lot of these things may not happen like, in the beginning of the year anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it might make it easier if we do that, but just a suggestion here.
Yeah, we can certainly get into that. The goal with hiring was to take on more responsibilities, a lot of which occurred during this year. So I can see, we're already going into the summer, so it would be, we would be starting that transition this summer. But you can certainly consider that.
And then for public service,
it's a tough one because, you wanna do more in the city.
I assume there's a line for contracted services for
There
public
is,
service.
and that was reduced.
Because of that.
Because-
Capacity anticipation with
So that might
employees.
go up.
So that would go up some if we don't hire the new person, but probably not immediately as much. Although, like you said, summer's the peak time unless we have a lot of snow next winter. But
I'm just looking for the big chunks that we can do something with because, half a year health insurance, a half a year salary. There's not a whole lot of other budget items that you can get the money out of.
I mean, workers' comp and property and liability went up by 110 combined, but nothing we can do about it.
And that's just- That's-
So there's a lot of these things that just, capital reserves on page 17, up by 20. Sorry, guys, this is, awful that we keep asking the same items, but,
That was for the admin building security upgrades.
and this is not included in the design that we were just talking about earlier, the other line.
Yeah, additions.
now, yeah, I think you mentioned, Antonina, that you thought there might be some grant money available.
Yeah,
for that.
certainly I'm gonna be pursuing other grant opportunities, but we still want to.
We've got to be, we don't know that we can't count our chickens before they're hatched, so to speak. Or the money before it's in our bank account.
Yeah,
City engineer, page 18, is something that we're probably under doing, if anything, but based on like this last year.
right. You certainly increased it from past 2 years, but you're right, we have expended a lot more this year.
Is that same pace that we're anticipating to be, or is it something that could go down to like under 30,000 a year?
City engineer.
Yes. Just curious, I
I
mean,
guess if we less development or things that we were working on,
It's hard to see that more can be added, you know, like, given how much was added last year, I feel like they were busy, but I just don't know if they're gonna be super busy.
Well, and part of that depends on how many issues come before the Board of Adjustment, because the engineer is also a consultant to the Board of Adjustment. And that's something that's difficult to project as well.
They come to all the meetings.
Right,
I don't know how
but,
much.
but they only have meetings when there are issues to be considered, so if we go a long period with no new issues.
I don't know how much, their services were relied upon in the past, but
Yeah, I don't-
expenditures.
It does seem odd that it went up so high this year.
Yeah,
We're 21, 27, 20, and this year we were 69. It's,
Right,
it's
that's-
quite a jump.
We can always have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or can you tell from the invoices? Or is that too complicated?
I could look at it.
I mean, if there was one big thing that, had to be done and maybe that's
I
an
think also,
outlier
sorry,
that we don't have to project for the coming year.
it's my understanding the previous city engineer is no longer with us, and so we have a new engineer.
Right.
It's the same
Your
firm.
cost might wanna-
He's been up, I don't know if, it took more time to get that person operated, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Does this, is it usually Jeff that contacts the city engineer and they work for Jeff or?
I think in the past, yes.
Okay.
Like I said, it was like things to agree. And I think when there was some time period without a city administrator, there were other people,
Joe, everything was saying that now.
engineer, solicitor, planner. So of course, the costs would go up during that.
Well, I hate to ask this question. We have not raised taxes in a long time. I know property taxes, school taxes are going up and all that stuff. But what is our impact if we raised it a little bit? And do we have some kind of scale to understand if we raised it a 0.25%? I don't know, to understand as what additional income that could potentially bring into us.
Yeah, we can project, different options based on the current assessment value. We haven't received the newest assessment value.
Not that I want to do that, but we haven't done it forever. What has it been, like 10, 12 years? And, but,
Oh, longer than 12.
16 years.
so the situation comes down to is that we are in a situation where all these expenses are going skyrocketing right now. And, I don't want to be the administration, but I think we need to understand what is that impact. And then understanding is, a regular person within our community of how does that affect them and how does that help us?
If we raise, I mean, it's an assessment of so much per $100 of assessed value.
It's $1.20 per
I
hundred.
thought that's.
So you could probably take somehow somebody could figure the math out, that's not my strong point. You take the amount that we've received and do you divide that by 100 or you divide it by?
Well, we have
$1?
So if we increased it from $1.20 to $1.30, how much more revenue would that bring in? And how much would that increase the average tax bill?
Right.
We can certainly look at.
And if we want to do that, I don't know off the top of my head if it would be an ordinance to change the tax rate, so it's at least 2 months, because you have to have first reading, second
Yeah.
reading. So the earliest we could do it would be effective August if we passed it in July.
Well, do you remember when you do the resolution for the budget, there is a blank in there.
Yeah,
So it's a resolution, is it a resolution or an ordinance?
but to change that rate,
Oh, raise the tax rate, it's gotta be in order.
it's gotta be, in order, I would guess, but I seem to remember being told there was some period of,
We send the bills out in July.
right. That's right, because it's an annual payment. So
But
that's
even if you do it, it's not happening until next
not
year.
gonna happen till next year.
So either way, we're gonna have to get a balanced budget at some point this year. And then look at an increase next year.
Right,
And we could do it now or soon, but
I mean, and we need to start looking at that in January,
yeah.
so that we could get it all in place in time for the new tax bills to go out and so
I think
forth.
it might be a resolution.
Oh,
But I'll have to double check.
But if you're talking about raising taxes, I would try, this is my thing, I'd try to raise it in. Never mind, I was thinking we were in 2023. Never mind.
So,
I was thinking of the election in 2025.
Oh. Yeah, anybody up for reelection in 25 would have to run on the fact that we increased taxes.
But, we have money, what, $11 million in the bank, so how do we touch some of that if we need be to help balance this to maybe get us through?
You can certainly, use some amount, but it's not advised to
Right.
run on that because it's not the best.
I
practice.
understand on best practice, but again,
To use one-time income for ongoing expenses.
one time, and then again, like this year, there's no way we could get it in for,
Well, the tax increase, if it could be done by resolution, we could conceivably do it in June, which would get it in time for the tax bills to go out in July. But
I would rather potentially hit for the year after and then hit a little of our reserve if need be.
we're talking about hitting $600,000.
Well, we still need to enable some of this.
but I think that's it's something the council needs to decide is what is a reasonable reserve too?
Right.
Mhm.
Because we know what the best practice is, but you could also say, well, but we've been taxing these people too much for years. Now we're gonna ask them for more, but we got $11 million sitting here.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it is like, what does council think the best, you know what I mean? How much do we need as a reserve? And I don't know that. I'm certainly not a financial person.
This is 6 months
At least.
before, the people were doing 6 months.
And what 6 months put us at?
Well, that depends on,
What was
Your
it?
budget.
What was the last finish?
if you look back at your,
6 months of revenue or 6 months of expenses, right?
Expenses.
So that's like $3 million, based on this expense projection, and we're nowhere near that.
so if you look at the unrestricted fund balance carry forward, it should be on the last page. It's kind of where we've been putting the 6 months. It should be a very last page,
I've got
or maybe
pension, job
the
reimbursement.
page right before.
Okay. Oh, the restricted fund carry, does it? Yeah.
And then the unrestricted.
The unrestricted is where it's been the 6 months.
Do we have a, I know we're a month out from completing this fiscal year, but do we have, I guess, live numbers on like how much effective excess we have?
And how much carryover from this year?
Carryover as in like project or just,
Where revenues,
all these are all actual numbers.
oh, okay,
I printed this today.
okay.
So these are numbers
Live,
as of
okay,
today.
okay.
The restricted funds is kind of the quote unquote carryover. That, you have income minus expenses and we happen to have X left from the previous budget.
So maybe I missed it. What is our expenses for 6 months?
No, sorry, the unrestricted carry forward, that's what was your 6 months last year. That was the 6 months reserve. Our 6 months reserve, the coming fiscal year, I'm not sure, it would be based on once the budget is closer.
But 287 can't be on
That's
those.
So no, that's not, so what they did was they used an amount from the savings, for lack of a better term, to balance the budget.
Yeah, and they're,
But in addition to that, we should have at least 6 months in the bank.
and then, yeah,
But it's not reflected here in the budget because it's not part of the approved budget.
Well,
It's-
But he's asking, what is that amount?
Yeah, so last year should have been about 3 million. And for this year, if our expenses are projected to be about 6 million, it should be half of that as well.
But the bottom line on, the last line on 24, page 24 says unreserved fund balance carried forward, and it's shown as 0. And I know sometimes the way this prints, it pops onto the next page, but it looks like it's been chopped off. Are we missing a line
I
here?
think that.
No, it carried,
Last, right?
Yes.
So, so like for the 32407 that's anticipated for this year, that's. Some of that will carry forward if we don't spend it all in the last few months of the fiscal year. Is that right?
So whatever we don't spend technically gets carried over, we have it in the bank account,
Right.
but it's not reflected, it may not be reflected in the budget because we're running expenses versus revenues. But the actual amount in reserve in the bank account is not going to be reflected on this budget. That makes sense?
I was just, the last 3 years, the MSC appropriations have remained flat.
Yes.
Do we have, you know, anything about-
I saw you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay.
And they came in, I mean, the previous year, which is the last completed year, it was very slightly ahead of the projection. This year's not over yet, so, because it was projected at 669.6 and it came in at 672.09, so that's pretty close.
Yeah.
This year, the year's not over yet, so.
So I don't know the best way to do this, but even if we just walk through the beginning of budget and start cutting columns, I mean, we're gonna have to do it sooner or later. I mean, I don't think there's any magic bullet that we're going to be able to say, hey, we don't have to do this, right? I think the first page, we probably can't do anything with,
Well, now does the,
not to mention the fact that we're gonna have to probably do this again after the contract's done.
Definitely.
Correct.
So the lines that we are using 2024 is on the front page lines under public safety, lines 1, 2, and 3. Those are kind of
They're the current numbers.
the current numbers.
For at
Okay.
least,
So,
but they're about to go up.
so the overtime vacation, FICA expense, health, well, the health.
That's all part of it too.
And that will go.
And the pension, next line.
well, yeah, because those are percentage of salary, FICA and pension or percent of salary, so.
So those ones that you highlighted here are the ones that are from this year.
Correct.
And so if we're gonna start cutting or looking and reviewing line by line, what we think you can cut, we're starting after that.
Yeah, and then. Salary there in the, yeah, you can't cut salary and related expenses.
Right.
Right. Alcohol, yeah.
But like, I'm looking at right there on page 2, professional, I mean, it might be 2,000 here, 5,000 more, but the professional development and travel,
Oh, you gotta start somewhere.
it's been about $2,500 and it's 5,000 now, but was that his request, the chief's request? Or, you know, are we gonna say, I'm sorry, 5,000?
Yeah, and I think you start there. You just take that and you make it 3,000, you go down, the computer. We went from 3,000 to 5,000, cut it in half, put it at 4. And just, I mean, I know it'll take a lot to add all these up, but I don't know how else we would be able to do it.
Good idea.
Well, if we go through and make these cuts and then you go back and plug the new numbers into your software, it'll do the math, right? We'd have a rough,
That thing is about $560,000 that we cannot even do anything about. It's increased just this year. So. That's the problem. But yes, I do agree with what was just said.
Well, I mean, again, when you're adding 3 positions, you know what I mean? That's significant between
I was just,
salaries and.
I was just looking about that, how much we save on that contract. It's 38,000, so it's actually. The 2 positions, 23, right, increase, if that's correct. So it's actually making us money there, but, you know. That's just that one.
we're not sure what that is, because obviously we're gonna pay the new person more than $23,000.
I think so, yes, I think that.
And then there's their FICA and insurance and all that
Mhm.
that goes with it.
35, I know, 35 is the savings on the contraction.
I think, I know I've heard it here before, but I think we need to maybe look, like, I would say at revenues, but technology grants to maybe get like cameras, like, can we, you know, maybe ticket people when they turn left, you know, on the, you know, Delaware Street by Ferry cutoff when they're not supposed to. I hate to do that, but I think we have, again, look at all revenue streams, all possible.
I think the problem with that type of stuff is the outlay you have to put up front
Right.
because you got to pay for the
Very
equipment, you got to have it installed, and then we don't run it. You pay a third party to run it and then you get a percentage.
Oh, yeah.
There is a lot of upfront
Red
costs.
light traffic.
So it's not considered under the police, guidance or?
So you,
Like,
because I think we
patrol
talked
officer?
about it before when I was on council, and it was such a huge outlay in the beginning. And then when you run through all this, we only get, even if someone gets a ticket for it, we get like this fraction amount on the ticket.
You're talking about like red light cameras and that.
Red light camera he was talking about, and you get like a fraction. I mean,
It's kind of like we've talked about, should there be parking fees on Delaware Street? Well, we looked into the cost of the kiosks and the cost of enforcement, and unless we made the parking rates really astronomical, we wouldn't even break even.
I didn't realize it was, not, you know, run by the police.
if we had a, what is it, if we had if, and I'm not suggesting we do
You
this.
go back to the magistrate.
If you
but-
go back to the magistrate's court, then you keep the vast majority of the
You
ticket.
don't, you mean mayor's court?
Well, I try to avoid that word.
Yes, you could keep all the ticket, but then you're paying a magistrate, a guard and a secretary and like,
Yeah.
it's not easy making money like that.
Person, stenographer,
The recorder,
and
yeah.
the recording, and, you know,
I don't know of really any jurisdictions in the county, in Newcastle County, except for Newark that has a magistrate. But obviously Newark is pretty large and deals with a lot of the college students and stuff like that, but it's not cheap to run that either.
I mean, I certainly want to look at revenues and opportunities to increase, or amend where it can be amended. But running on a short timeline, I don't know how quickly we can get that done for this year's budget unless we make, a revision to those items halfway through the year or something.
Same page on 2 at the bottom line, body cameras. So it looks like we had 13.4 last year and we didn't spend any of it. We're doing 13.4 again this year. What is that because we're replacing all the cameras or is that storage or how did we not spend any last year?
So
I think there may have been
I think there was a grant for the body cameras, but I thought that showed up here and then showed up on the revenue side, but to some grants, they buy it directly or something, so we don't, it doesn't even go through our budget.
possibility. I'm not sure. 100%.
I'm pretty sure I remember the chief saying that the body cameras came from a grant.
Okay.
But that should show up then in our revenue. somewhere.
Well, but the
Unless
fact that
they
we
purchase
should,
it
unless they
outright.
purchase it directly. If the grant like buys the cameras and brings in the boxes and says, here they are. And it doesn't go through our budget, we don't write the check, we don't receive the income.
Just that one alone,
But,
if there's $13,400 sitting there in the current budget, can't we just keep that money there and not have it in the current year budget?
So the way that the budget works is you run on the revenues that you raise that year. That's what I'm saying. So the revenues that we raise have to equal the expenses that we expend. The money in the bank account is not related to this budget unless we chose to use it and we put it in those last line items with that Courtney was referencing in order to balance the budget.
I think Joe's idea was good. You just start going line by line.
Yeah.
And there are some things, can't change that, move on, can't change that, move on.
but we can take 13.4 out of our expenses because that is one way or the other supplemented by a grant, correct?
It was this year. I'm not sure if it'll be.
No, I'm saying like, because let's say they got cameras. It says 0, but let's say they spent 13.4. Chiefs, chief purchases online, then they're reimbursed, whichever, or they, like, that is basically 0. It's not showing in our revenue, but
Well, there may be ongoing
Yeah.
expenses for storage, for the data from the cameras.
Right.
For
correct.
maintenance
There's-
of the cameras,
There's software, there's maybe cloud storage.
batteries, I don't
Yeah.
know. But the biggest one's gonna be your cloud storage and your data management.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused because it was budgeted last year.
Yeah.
And if it was a grant, I would have expected it to be bought last year. And if it
I-
wasn't, like, are we buying it this year?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of confusing to me
I
that,
don't know.
you know, and I understand. Be the difference,
But-
yep.
We'll look into that.
Yep. So, and then I mean, I'm just going through unless somebody wants to do something different, I don't know.
Can I go, Joe, on the same page?
Go ahead.
Fourth line, computer, increasing to 5,000. Is this just a new computer that we need, or, you know, just? At this point, we gotta start making decisions, what is needed, what's essential, and, you know, what's a nice to have kind of thing.
Yes, they wanted to get some more computer equipment.
Is it replacing existing, or is it adding,
I think it's upgrading existing.
upgrading it? So they're replacing current computers with new ones.
And if you look at what's already been spent so far this year, this is only like $1,400 more than what they've spent so far this
So we
year.
gotta start something, you know.
I know. I think if we're gonna do this, we're gonna have to go from top to bottom. We can't skip around all over.
Yeah.
I didn't take the top line, but the second line, it's professional development, I changed that from 5,000 to 3,000. The books and publication, looks like that's close to, right?
Got it right.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the second line was professional development. I'm suggesting we go from 5,000 to 3,000. And I was the one that was raising the flag for professional development. I realize that. And then when you go down to the fifth one, for computer, I'm saying we go from 5,000 to 4,000. And some of these things I understand people want, but we just got to make the decisions. And the next one is maintenance contracts. I see where our previous spending's been, and I know contracts are going up, but we went to 18,000. Maybe we can keep it at 4,000. I didn't really see anything else on that page.
14.
14, I'm sorry. So we would go from 18 to 14.
So that would, the maintenance contracts, I assume that's for like the building and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'll have to double check, that that's feasible.
Cause you know, we don't know if the rates for that have
Yeah.
gone up.
Because there's really not much else on that we could
I mean,
change.
office supplies, we obviously,
Postage, I mean,
But we can look at the new contract, right? Like if this one is going to 18, we can look for alternatives, right?
As long as it's not, you know.
Yeah, I know, but you know, we can explore that too.
Yeah.
and so she needs to get back to us on the body cameras, because I'm not
Yeah.
sure about that either.
Yeah.
Well, what security cameras do you want?
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
we do. They're watching you.
But they're budgeting 0 for that anyway, right?
yeah, that's,
Okay.
but he got a grant for that. I think that was, they were looking, or that's the one they decided not to do. They were looking into the cameras that like scan license plates. And they decided not to do that. That's why that one zeroed out. And there was a grant.
This is for, yeah, that we did get.
And we got a grant and they got permission to move that money into another category.
Yeah, but that's not why this is zero.
This is zero.
This was something else.
All right, so
Go on page 3. I skipped the first line, the second line, uniforms and maintenance. We got 13,000. I say we scale that back to 11,000.
Can I push back and say 10? You're at this last year, I'm just, you know, unless you guys have
Absolutely.
information.
To, change the uniforms a little bit and get new uniforms.
I understand, yeah, but we're trying to balance, but if. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so it's not like they don't have uniforms, they're get new ones.
That, and I think to equip the new oncoming officers.
yeah, that
So
would,
maybe 11,000 then, instead of 10, just to allow for new uniform, even though they're only using 6,000, so I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think you make the decisions and they have to live with it.
Let's go with
They
10.
figure out how to do it.
We've been at 10 for, 4 years out of 5.
and then the next one, the medical testing, that's required, the
Yeah.
required drug testing, right? So we can't change that.
I didn't do anything with the next 2, and then we get to building repairs. I see that we've expended 7,300 this year. We had 5,000 budgeted and now we're budgeting 10, so maybe we cut that back to 8. We cover what we did this year, and but we're also cutting 2,000. I don't think you can really do anything with building heat.
I'm okay with that.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the pay job stuff really isn't us, it's just a pass through, right?
Correct.
So.
Which
and
was
then
that, sorry?
Next
I'm
to the
sorry,
last.
pay job, next to the last SEO pay job. That's just other people paying them to be, you know what I mean, to stand by. And then the evidence looks like, I don't think you could do anything with that.
And that they need, new equipment and new testing products and things like that, and they provided, actual expenses and a big back up, and so I don't think.
Yeah.
Same with the,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably go up too.
Yeah.
It's
Do
up.
anything with motor fuels.
And they've already cut the radio repair,
Yep.
vehicle parts and repair,
Mm.
you can't really cut that.
And debt service, we can't touch that, right, for the vehicles. And then the capital outlays, equipment and vehicles, that's the same thing, right?
Well, this is one that we could potentially, right? This is something that wasn't able, something we cannot discuss it in this meeting, is that correct? The capital outlays, equipment and vehicles. Because that's the building, is that?
this is the other capital outlays, this is for,
Public service, yeah.
this,
I'm sorry, I'm talking public safety, sorry.
this is for, police grades.
I know, but that was something you weren't able to share with us in, this meeting, that would be executive.
Is that a
session.
contract?
I was asking- Okay. Did we just,
Why is it going to 100?
why both of them going?
Improvements to be done.
The building up
That's what I. That's something that I would like to hear, I guess is what I'm saying. Can we have an executive session about that? Thank you.
Put a big question mark by that one.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if it's just a wish list, then we have, it's a tough decision to make, but it's $90,000, so it's.
So I guess the question is on that scenario, could it be a 2-year scenario? So
Mhm.
half of that this year, half of the possibility.
Maybe. Take your time. But sometimes you get things cheaper, if you do it all at once, so we can save them.
I'm just looking for.
And I will say that, I mean, this is like everything with the government, it's a balancing act, right? We know we're gonna pay more in police expenses for salaries and everything, you know what I mean? And so.
Yeah.
Maybe that's their building upgrades for this year or a part of it, or, you know what I mean? Like,
But it's some of the security items, that's,
absolutely, and I know that you guys.
That's what, that's what I was. Understand if it's critical,
Yeah.
Aesthetics, I'm sure it's all important. I don't doubt it at all. But, we got a certain amount of money we can spend, so.
and then the salaries for supervision, I mean, the chief has a contract, I think captains have a contract.
So, but that's public service, right?
This is public service line, yeah.
Oh, we've jumped the line, sorry, we're into a new category.
So, I mean, it doesn't look like that has went over 136, but at the same point, I understand everything increases, but
Well,
is
they
there a
got,
shot that we can get that to 145 or?
did they get cost of living increases?
Last line, set, 4.
4,
Salary supervision,
for
public service.
supervision of,
They got it.
We'll have to talk about it in executive session as well.
Okay.
I'll put a question.
Yeah,
So we're back to the +1 person for the code enforcement personnel. So again, and I said maybe that we push the first person or the new person back 6 months. I mean, even if we pass the budget tonight, by the time it passes in July, you advertise, you hire somebody, you know what I mean?
Push back the new.
The new position. 6 months.
not Furious replacement, but the additional.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
+1, the +1.
Yeah. And I don't know how that would affect this. I assume it was taking like 25% or something. Reduce it somewhat by 25%.
you mean like health and FICA and all that stuff?
No, I'm just talking about salary.
This is just salary.
So at least, I mean, it gives you a chunk
Do we know?
which we don't have to make chunks so far.
Especially because it's a personnel and the health is 27% increase this year, so it does tag along another expense. On top of that 58 there, you know, like there's.
If you wanna put a question mark by the salaries, and once we go through that, then I'll just leave. Can you go into executive session?
No, we haven't announced.
Oh, we
Yeah,
don't,
we advertised.
sorry.
So then we go back down and we're in the salaries overall for public service.
And that includes 2 new people, right?
And you suggested looking into one in July and one in January.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, even if you, I mean, would you advertise a position before the budget started?
If it was approved before the budget
Okay.
started, to be
All
clear,
right.
yeah,
So you could theoretically have somebody in place July 1st or close to it.
theoretically.
Okay.
That's on, are we gonna be able to approve the budget by then?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, I mean, it may, even if you hold somebody off for 3 months, it probably, you know what I mean, is
Yeah.
a chunk,
So,
so.
That's true.
I mean, the vacation and sick cell back, that's pretty much been steady.
Yeah.
And that's hard to predict. Look how it goes up and down through the past 5 years. Depends on what people do, if they retire or whatever.
Yeah.
And the FICA,
Yeah.
that would go down a little bit if we delay those 2 new positions.
same with health and pension.
Yeah, all those things that are percent.
Did they, I think I asked this, but they requested 7,000 for professional development and travel, correct?
No,
Yeah, we
that's-
talked about adding
yeah.
that and, working on skill building
Well,
and.
that's true,
And
and
I was, and I was happy it's in there, but at the same point, maybe we cut it back to 5.
Sure.
I mean, it's still 10 times what we did before, but,
yeah, let's do
Right,
that.
I think for things like
yeah.
getting people trained to get their CDL, which lets them drive the big trash trucks and makes scheduling more flexible. And also training for tree trimming, which would reduce the need for contractual services for that. So it would bring a little bit of benefit.
Right.
But
But
if
we
we
can at least get started with
can
it.
get started with it, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe not do as many people
Yeah.
trained, but train some.
Yeah.
To move in that right direction, but not quite as fast. And the books and reference material, that's not that much anyway. We've been carrying it along. They haven't spent any since 2020.
I did look into
What is
the
that?
cost of, the ICC training or code book.
Oh, this is the code book. Oh, okay. Yeah, they get upgraded periodically, then we have to buy a whole new set, right?
Would be adopted.
If we adopt it, yeah.
So this is 15, 17, the last time we adopted new code.
Yeah.
So that's why 16 is a line item, so that we have
Yeah.
always in budget.
Yeah.
And the computer we're carrying, we've lowered it actually by 300, so. Even over the actuals.
Yeah, it went up because of server upgrades this year or something. Yeah, there were some server upgrades this year. Computer and software.
That was, the computers, we replaced computers.
Go to the next slide on the page 6.
It's 7,000.
Computer and software.
It's 3,000. No, but I'm saying on the next page also like okay, that was 1.2, but the expenditures were 3.669. Like, is that also part of that same,
What's the header? What's the?
Yeah.
office supplies, equipment and printing? So was that equipment also like there perhaps, some of it? or-
No, that's for
Office.
printing.
That's just printing.
It's paper and toner. and-
Yeah, and public works, prints a lot due to road closures and all the notices.
Oh, right, all those- and we've still lowered it from what they spent this
Yeah.
year,
But
so we probably shouldn't lower it anymore.
that was.
But if you go back to the computer and software expense, we did the big expenditures this year for the upgrades for the.
Right, but if we're looking, to look at another company with MSC, then it may be steady or it may actually. increase. And
Okay.
So the computer software, so you said road closures?
right below that.
They print all those signs that they hang up when they have to close.
Computer software was, all staff on the new computers. Upgraded computers, because they were out of date and weren't gonna be in compliance anymore.
Security issues.
Yeah.
So the next one that I have on that was looking at temporary labor. So we've did 5,000 for the past 2 years and haven't used any. And we are hiring, so can we knock that down to 2,000? And then, the building repairs, and I know this might be something specific, but it looks like we budgeted 7,000, looks like we went over that every year. So can we get that to 12,000 and then, you know what I mean, to cut it by 3?
Yeah, I'll double check to make sure there wasn't anything specific there.
I mean, they had that roof damage. Did the insurance come through on that?
They did, thankfully. That we were going to get that done.
I think we're gonna cut off the heat, so.
Yeah. Take over.
Yeah, no.
So is it fair to say fuel and lubricants can be trimmed down because it seems like actuals are lower? Because of the new machines, I'm guessing we're spending less, is that correct? Fuel, I'm guessing on lubricants, we're spending less because we have new trash truck, right?
I think the price of gas.
It's the gas price mostly, I imagine.
And then we were-
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
That would be
we
a
could
little
do that in-house as well.
I just wonder if 45 is appropriate to spend 44.
That's what I'm saying. I'll take 45,
Right.
like the right number after be based on what we're spending. And I mean, it isn't like gas has been cheap in the past 6 months now, right? I mean.
Can we do that? I mean, everything is really, big question mark, but.
We're not gonna change the landfill fees.
No. See what the yard paste.
I mean, I don't know, could we,
Equipment's cut.
Why is this reduced, like, in actual over the years, does anybody, like, know, like, is there just less? What's the efficiency, I guess, I'm curious.
show that it's
A
gone
yard,
down?
sorry. Yeah, that's gone down, yes.
I guess that maybe they've collected less, I'm not sure. Also, didn't you mention to me, Suzanne, that they had, sorry, President Sar, they had the chipper, they have the wood chipper. Yeah, Rick said that, so they've been using that and maybe not having to go to landfill
For something,
for some things.
Yeah. For some of the yard waste, maybe,
Yeah,
because I know they chip the Christmas trees and some of the other stuff. They,
18 for that? For the yard waste?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 17 and 19 to 22 and 23, so.
Truck repairs looks truck repairs.
skip a few, or we gotta leave them the way they are. Safety equipment and signs.
Yeah, I mean, they already cut that to 3,500.
Right.
So that probably looks accurate, and the small tools seems pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
Um,
radio repairs isn't that much, and they've cut it in half. So the truck repairs, yeah, well, we've lowered it from this year's.
Yeah, and one major repair, I mean, or a couple really could.
Well, see, we had that in the 2 previous years when there were bigger expenses, the 100 and the 106, they had that old trash truck that kept breaking down. And they got rid of that.
But even the 2 previous years from that, we were at 40, you know what I
Right.
mean, or 40, 47.
yeah,
So
which is
I
why,
think 40 is probably close to the right number,
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully.
I wouldn't go lower than 35, like doubling this year's, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough to kind of know without 4 years.
And this year's not over yet either.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, 40 probably looks,
the uniforms, that's been steady. We've been spending about the same the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Special event overtime.
so special event overtime, would that be covered by the event organizer? Like, why are we picking up the overtime, I guess?
that'll be like for our events, right?
Some like separation day, they pick it up, but for like Day of Newcastle and those things, we pick it up, right?
I'm just curious how it picked up in 2023, maybe because it was COVID prior,
Yeah.
prior to less events probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we had 19, that would probably. Just was curious if there was event added, to be picking up the plate. So street materials, and you talk to us, what are you planning for,
This is what included.
oh, sorry, page 8.
Bike racks and crosswalks,
Yeah.
right? So that's the extra 2 for this year's, but then we haven't even spent close to that. We spent 3 so far.
Right, and I think, that also included additional, materials to fill potholes and maybe stay on top of that, and tackle that more than it has been done.
And let's face it, we've been lucky many years now with snow. We
Right.
haven't had to buy a lot of, you know what I mean, salt or sand or whatever,
Exactly.
so,
I think they've used a lot of salt this year, if I'm not mistaken, so. sure.
well, maybe compared to years past,
Yeah,
but I mean,
right.
really, it was very light again this year.
Right, we only had what, 2 snowstorms
Yeah.
or
But I think
something?
compared
Very
to the
minor.
years,
Could you lower that to 10 and you're still leaving a big,
it was at 10, we added 2 after this past meeting for bike.
Yeah, these two street materials and street repairs, I'm really passionate about because I feel like that's where residents see the city's presence, you know, like, so. I know we could cut some money on both of those lines because Autumn wasn't utilized much, so we could just say we'll roll out, you know, this year and the next year, but. You know, that would be.
You
the
may not
simplest-
use-
Yeah. That potential there is 4 to 5,000, right there, we could cut across those 2 lines, but I would propose to keep it. I
Yeah.
think it is. I like the aggressive approach that Antonina's.
And the sand and this, you never know what the wind is gonna bring.
I didn't realize there was a separate line for that, but I see it now.
Yeah,
Sand and abrasives.
Yeah, I think we don't touch that, because that's just a good. You know,
Yeah.
you
And then-
don't-
We kind of run a just in case for outside contractors in case we really have a lot of snow, right? Not that,
And we're,
we did lower that.
You know, it's gonna be-
part. And now the 85, that's the dog park, right?
Correct.
So,
wait, I
No,
thought we
no,
had the 8,000 there is for the shading stuff, I think.
It's 75,000 for the mobile stage, 8,000 for the park benches. The original budget is
Oh,
2,000.
that's our part right there, that line is our. Been. That's part of the revenue right now, the 2,778.
Only the 75.
So it'll be adjusted to.
And the 8,000 was for what? I'm sorry.
well, and I can tell you that what we're looking at with the stage should be a lot cheaper than this.
Good,
We put 75 aside, but it was a lot more extravagant than we thought than we needed. So my guess is that it should be under 40. So that's what we're hoping for.
So can we lower this to, let's say, assume it's 40, so take 35, make this 50 instead of 85?
That was coming out of ARPA anyway.
Oh,
So
that was ARPA money.
though?
I think 155, we could,
Balance, it's not, that line wouldn't affect what the budget is.
No, that's the ARPA's balance and then have it in the salary.
once we go, then we can make another motion to,
This is gonna go down to what?
revise that.
Hopefully 48.
48 and then plus 8, it would be.
48.
No. 40 and then 8. I'm saying 38 would be our total line item, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. But that, yeah, that doesn't add anything to our balance cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is the next line, the 32.5 is tree advisory commission for pruning and planting, and then the extra 2 for flowers in the pots is not there, right?
It is.
It is.
So it was
30,
30,500 that they requested plus the 2.
right.
Is there a way to cut that back even a little bit?
We originally had the 20 budgeted until they made the request to.
We could, I mean, I didn't print it, but they said they had 2 columns, one for new plantings and one for maintenance. And I don't know that we can defer the maintenance because you don't want power lines coming down and all that stuff.
Right.
Maybe they have like a 5-year plan for planting, so maybe they can
Cut
slow
back
that.
on some of the planning and reduce this a little bit?
I'm saying we just say make it 30 and say, this is what you got to deal with. I mean, we went from 20, now we're going to 32.5. I mean.
Well, I'm
if
thinking
we
like
got it-
28, to be honest.
Oh,
28? That's still $8,000 more.
And they can scale back their new plantings.
Wow. When would they plant the trees? Do you guys know what time of the year? Would it be
They've been
spring?
planting them now, no, they've been planting some now, like.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, they were out there.
I guess the reason I'm saying is like, I would recommend we move this 25. And then mid-year review, add the rest of it back hopefully we're doing okay. And then they can, they'll align with this. That would be my proposal, but I'm okay with
It's
28.
good, 25 it is.
I love trees,
Me too.
but this is something like, this is beautifying the city, but it also will continue to create an additional expense.
Very passionate about this too, but yeah, just trying to. The last line is the contract maintenance that might go up if we go with cutting that one position where we're saying, or delaying it. So just something to note, potentially there's an addition to our cuts right now. This is down 35,000. I don't know, I can't project how much this will go up.
So
but
you're in
just-
the, which one? are you-
Bottom line, contract maintenance for
Okay, we
cities.
skipped
Oh.
playground maintenance.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that was like the mulch. If we get this new, rubberized surface, then we won't need the mulch, except they'll still gotta put mulch under the zip line, I think.
All the
Question,
This is what.
Who's pay for the mulch?
No, they did
They
it one
did
time.
that one
Kate.
time, but this also includes.
And it's all of our playgrounds too, it's not just battery.
One time.
So why is it 12 this time? And we've, in the past, it doesn't look like. we
Why is it
wanted
at 6?
I think once, like they stagger when they were fully replace, the park mulch at different parks, and I think maybe some more needed to be replaced this next year, fully replaced, so removed and replaced.
Oh, and then topping
At the,
with all the other parks.
So the trustees are responsible for the maintenance of Battery Park.
Yeah.
That excludes mulch?
Their thing is the playground, the buying the mulch. I'm not saying it makes
No,
sense.
no, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand.
but, no, I'm just saying it doesn't make sense, but their thing was, we will buy the mulch one time.
Yeah.
They were not happy with the new playground, they
Yeah,
felt
they
they were left blue, and it wasn't needed, and that what was wrong with the old one, and that's the view of many of the
I
trustees.
have met with trustees several times about it, because we had to talk to them about the borders changing, and like, would they still be maintaining the playground? So they said, yes, I mean, I'm sure there's some trustees that are not happy about it, but this wouldn't have happened without their approval and the vote on a trustee meeting, so.
But from my understanding, we always covered the mulch at Battery. I think
At that-
that,
Even in the past,
yes, I believe so.
interesting,
I think we cut it to 10 and saved 2,000 there.
okay.
I mean, if you took the past 2 years, we haven't spent 10.
No, that's.
So, I mean, I think that's,
Yeah, cause I think some of them already have to be done every other year completely, as Antonina said.
Yeah.
But still, it's more than the last 5 years, so. And then the contract maintenance for the parks, that's
That's what I
down,
was talking about, yeah.
and the dog park, that's,
That's our, so it doesn't really impact this. We just voted last meeting to move the 65 from the prior parking lot, correct?
no.
so, I'm sorry, we on the next page?
I
What
think
is-
so. Right.
What is the 22,709 for the capital outlays, equipment, vehicles?
it's for a lawnmower, it's higher.
Gotcha,
Um,
okay.
but
I remember
that's-
saying that.
That's one expense, and then another expense is for, two down payment for 2 cars. Because the one vehicle is very old, it's like, I don't even know, from the, or something, it's really old. And then, the need for another vehicle on top of that.
So how much is the lawnmower?
Well,
Could we do a one-time ARPA, since it's a one-time shot that we're buying something like that
for the lawnmower,
for the lawnmower, and if it could be a big hit to help us?
Put it on the list.
it could, if, especially if the band shell.
If the van shell comes in lower.
Yeah, that's what that's a good idea. To just offset it, trying with that.
Mhm.
But what, I mean,
We have to wait till that number
Yeah.
comes in.
When's that number coming in?
I'm hoping within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not a band shell expert, so I'm trying to get
No.
feedback from other people. Some, there's a couple that I really want to hear what they have to say. So, you know what I mean? I don't want to go out and get something and say, well, yeah, what you need. So, anyway. So, in just going down then, like the handicap ramps, I know we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Programs, I think we need to be doing them every year. And like I said, have a hit list to do them. I really don't wanna see us to cut that. I really wanna see us just to use it.
Right.
One of the meeting was that they have been working on handicap, but it's been tied to other problems. So funds may have been applied somewhere else in the budget in years past, so that's why it looks like no funds are extended for.
Oh, I do remember.
It was
that.
just, it may have been applied elsewhere, but part of the bond bill request that I did put in for streets did include handicap,
Gotcha.
items. Yeah,
I think my only point is, even if they're part of other projects,
yeah,
we got tens and 20, 30 of them
Yeah.
that still need to be done. We could still be doing the other ones.
yeah,
You know
and
what I mean, not just when we have a project.
no, you're
Um,
right, and I'm working on getting, a report on which, ramps need to be improved.
Yeah, I think most of us remember when we had the old library was shut down because somebody that was handicapped came in the city, they couldn't, and it really blew everything up and opened people's eyes. But we're still, still not completely compliant, so it'd be nice to just keep moving on. So. So debt service, vehicle lease, I think that's already committed. Debt service, road repair, we're committed. Storm drainage,
And some of that the
That's for a
trustees
permit.
pay too, right?
Yes,
The debt
Yeah.
service road repairs.
go bond, yeah.
and we don't even have anything in capital improvement road repairs yet.
Just maybe we could or something to have something, but we should.
We could find it.
Here.
Okay, mayor and council. Salaries. Right,
Why is advertising highlighted? I'm just curious.
Because we added the $500 billing plan scholarship.
Right.
That's sponsorship and scholarship.
so that's why it's 10-5 instead of 10.
Correct.
Professional development, it's not that much to begin with.
Too much there, phew.
Association dues, now that's what the the league and.
Yeah. Legal local governments and probably maybe some dinners.
No, I think it's a one-time thing. I think it's still.
What's contributions in MNC that doesn't have anything budgeted?
I'm sorry, which one?
Second from the bottom.
Oh, you're getting ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, it jumped at me.
Economic activities, we budgeted for the outreach coordinator for another year, right?
Yeah, the outreach
Yeah.
coordinator and we added the $2,000 for shifts.
Oh, right.
So I think we are down to that line. What is the contribution to MNC? It looks like 99 was requested. But there-
That's this.
Okay.
So you put in the. So if we went,
Oh, but that's not even in the budget right now, so that would really,
It
it's under,
It hits.
see if here I requested.
Wait, what was the? Oh, no.
It's just how.
That's a nonprofit.
Right.
okay.
Now, do we, I mean, to maybe step on the third rail here, do we want to look at some of these and say maybe we can't do as much as we might otherwise like? It's hard to cut goodwill, but maybe some of the others,
They didn't get 65,000.
but that was specifically for the breathing apparatus here.
I think we finish going through this and then we do that,
Oh,
to see kind of where we're at, get an idea maybe. That's just my opinion.
well, sure, that's reasonable. Okay, meeting security, that's the police officers at the meetings.
Sure. Hopefully, we won't have as much election expenses this year.
Oh, we the AV system and you put that at zero because that's gonna be spent this year.
I believe it'll be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that'll be done. Yeah, hopefully,
I know it's-
but we still put 5 for election expenses. Do we need, oh, there will be an election. Great,
And I like.
Yeah.
so we need that. The Rivertown rides has been zero for a couple of years.
Right.
But that inscription, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The calendar, that's very popular with
Absolutely.
people in town.
Can I circle back to election expenses real quick? Are we anticipating elections? It's just that,
April of 25, there's an election.
Andrew and,
Joe and me,
And Suzanne. Mhm.
Wow. Yep.
every 2 years.
No, I know.
you have to do it again too,
Yes, if I decide I'm going to, yes.
if she decides.
So going through there, I didn't see a whole lot that, you know, what I mean,
Transcription, that's,
why was there so much in 23?
which one are we on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Extra meetings. You had a lot of executive sessions and.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah, with all the
Yeah, that's true,
extra,
that's true, yeah.
all those extra meetings, that's right.
It's probably not gonna be 14 next year, I'm guessing, but you know, it's probably not where we're gonna have too much priority.
Fees to Goodwill Riverbend, that's an in and out, isn't it? So that's covered by a contribution from them, so that's
Again,
okay. I don't know if we could cut Jim Wisman's whopping big salary. Like, finance. Salaries, that's fixed.
Oh, finance not even included in here.
That's not included, yeah, there's nothing.
Because we moved it to admin.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, okay, okay.
Just
Look at the
Thanks.
next one. Yeah, we'll see.
and the sellback is also moved to admin.
And that's why that salary number is so much higher. I see. that.
Well, right. The FICA and all this, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Pension.
Sorry, what page is everybody?
Well,
Well, okay, wait,
No, I'm on 13 because 12
Can
doesn't have.
we go back to 12 for the
Yeah.
audit? Just curious, we haven't hit 35 in actual expenditures. The highest was 30.
oh, yeah.
Well,
Sorry, 30 in 2023.
it's based on when they finish, you get your last invoice. And the track since I've been here is we've been behind, not our fault, it's the auditor's fault. So based on that, the last invoice has been coming in a new fiscal year. So some of this 22 that you see now actually is from,
23.
it would have hit the previous year, but because they finished it so late, we were already into the new fiscal year. So, they give us, like their, I guess, a proposal of how much it is. So it does hit, it is 32.
You mean, sorry, 35 for next year.
We don't know what next
You
year.
just anticipating.
Yeah, but
I know it's a different topic, but do we change auditors periodically?
No, but I'm glad you brought that up because there has been a pattern of really drawn out auditing process with this firm, so I would like to consider looking at another.
It's always a good, I'm an ex-auditor, it's always good practice to switch auditors up every so often to
Yeah.
get new views.
Absolutely.
So,
Actual idea that, you know, does the auditing has changed over time, but.
Just the same firm.
Yeah. But I think we should certainly go out to bid.
Like to do it all. Yes, and an RP and.
You saying like the fact that they go over the next year and stuff, that's kind of like,
yeah,
yeah, that is a little strange.
It's been here.
Yeah.
Last year.
I only wonder if that's because they're operating at the end of the fiscal year and then they audit it, that's not what they do.
That's different.
yeah, but
I mean, they were doing the fiscal year that ended last June 30th.
No, I know that,
no, we were doing 22 then.
In September.
So it sounds like they just have had this contract for so long.
Well, no, we had,
Comfortable, or they just don't care.
yeah. What we
Page
get
13.
told is, it was turnover. And then when the turnover happened, then the new person has to get acclimated to our stuff and another person leave and, but that's still not a valid reason.
with it, it would be very well.
sharing that goes,
So, but bottom line, we have to leave that number alone.
I would, yeah.
Joe, what were you saying about 13? You started saying something and I asked to go back page.
This is admin salaries. Oh,
Yeah, I was just saying the finance came over to here and that's why there's a huge difference in numbers.
But go ahead, executive session for that.
But yes.
So,
Okay,
so going down through, I mean, it looks like the salaries are what they are, the salaries and the pension. But like professional development, again, all for it, we budgeted 6, maybe we take it to 4. City administrator expense, it's 4, maybe we take it to 3. And then I know we talked about the computer hardware and IT services. And we're budgeting 80,000.
So I think, just to go back, but city administrator expense was probably 3. And then we did increase it because of volunteer recognition and branding. Yeah.
Yep.
So that includes some other things. But yeah, we can certainly look at lowering those.
So what is the difference between that and the administrative expense line for admin on the other page? On the next page, on the, looks like the, 1, 2, 3, 4th one down.
Which one, sorry?
Oh,
Administrative expense, admin.
I see, 550, 500.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Second question.
Yeah, we looked into,
yeah, it has a different number. The notes are the same.
we just had a conversation, I'm sorry, it's escaping both our brains, but,
One of them,
I
gal?
think it was, no, it says
Oh,
fuel.
that's something else, yeah.
Was it something, a program or something, I think? I'll look back in. I think it was like a program or something.
that was for city administrative, the membership, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, just, we'll look into that one.
So we'll leave the city administrator expense. I know we added some things on that. But then even the computer hardware and IT services, it is a lot of money. Can we cut it? Can we get to 70? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly look to cut it. But like I said, I just don't know right now what it will be.
Yeah.
But we do know we want to definitely look around and see if there are other options out there, and that
Oh,
would
you
be
mean besides assurance media or whatever, that's what this is?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I just wanna make sure, I have professional development at 4,000.
Yes.
And,
No changes to city administrator expenses.
okay,
Right,
that's
right.
enough.
Yeah, we can.
And then if we can, I have the computer hardware and IT services, potentially reducing to even significantly if we do need to make cuts, and continue current services and then reevaluate next year. So if you guys can look into the pricing.
So meanwhile, we're gonna keep the 80 until you all have to
Correct, yeah.
review it.
Mhm.
Is that what we're doing?
for computer and IT. I mean, we could lower it by 10 just to make some sort of cut. But like I said, I'm gonna look at other funding options. I know that, there are some things out there, but in terms of moving to a whole new, company, it's gonna cost us, some money, but TBD.
It's transition.
So take the time being, we can discuss where that needs to move next time when we meet. Thank you.
Okay, dues and publications about that's for like professional dues and that sort of thing, is that right? The very bottom line on page 13.
Yeah, I think some of that was in the contract too.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's also
We
part of the
expect it.
city administrator
Yeah.
expense and then something
Yeah.
there as well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Office supplies and printing, doesn't look like we can lower that one, because that stuff's going up. Postage, same thing.
Can we get 1,000 out of postage?
Well, yeah, but
Now we have to get a new, postage meter.
Actually, we just found out it'll be delayed for another year. So we could probably lower it to,
4.
Just 4? We lower it to 3?
I was gonna say,
The lower, yeah.
Ready for it?
500. Phones,
so just remember for next year, we don't need it.
yeah. I don't see that we can cut the phone because we didn't pretty close to, and that's a contract, right? And this was the one is why is it, the word's the same, but the,
The amounts are different.
Yeah, we'll have to, this is
Yeah.
TBD.
And then, so the only other one here that looks a little, is the building security and maintenance. And I know we talked about this, but we're going from 2,500 to 5,000.
This was.
What was done in 2021 that was 5,000? I'm curious. Miss, I guess
Yeah, I'm
the
not
old,
sure.
old council, the,
Oh, gosh, I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I don't expect you to remember it, honestly.
That was a very generous estimate for building security upgrade and maintenance. That was just expecting to again make,
Well, now, what about the whole issue with the key card replacement? Is that part of this?
yeah, there are certain things we have to talk about in executive session.
Okay,
But yeah, this is a generously low estimate.
okay, so we can delete this.
Oh, so we were less than.
Heat,
We already talked about that last time. I
Yeah.
think I brought it up.
fuel, that's gassy. Gas prices.
And then software support, is this tied into the other line that we're just talking about, the upgrades for the software and hardware, like? is
Yeah,
that
these are our current systems, so like ADP for HR, payroll, admins, our financial system, form
It's like the
filling,
annual fee, right?
yeah.
So this is pretty much 38.
The additions that we did make were 1,000 for a website update, with the UD program, and then 5,000 for Code Red or some type of emergency alert system.
Copier lease,
That's a contract.
that's a contract, so do we pay that quarterly? Is that why we haven't paid? Cause we've got one more quarter this fiscal year, I guess. But the last couple years, like last year, the completed year 23, it was 2767 instead of 4,000.
Yeah, 35 seems to be a number we can go with there. I mean, but, yeah,
Then we're gonna make that 35.
okay with that.
No,
What line do you want?
Yeah, 35.
the third one, copier admin.
Yeah, we'll double check
Oh, I see.
the tracks for that.
Can I ask a question about Power Line, real quick?
Sure.
Is there, in your experience, is there opportunity to look for funding from the state for the Code Red, system? I know it's 5,000, but I just wonder if there's, because there's certain, purpose. And I talked to you about that. This is something that I would like us to have as a city, but I just wonder if there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. I know like DMAT has their own,
Yeah,
but that's statewide. So I don't know if they would offer something for municipalities, but I can look.
thank you.
Oh, I see HR is all zeroed out too. Did we move that into admin?
We never had it.
Oh, that's right, we use a contractor, right? So that expense is listed somewhere else, right?
Yes. It's like the professional services.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, temporary labor is on the page 16
And that's
for
what it's
HR. That's where it's at. I hope we don't hit that 38 number.
in temporary, oh, yeah.
39. Ooh.
Well, does that include, consultants? That includes Bill, right?
This is Bill, I think.
Bill, HR, and we had Kathy.
Oh, right, Kathy Walls consulted when you came in, right?
Bill must be the biggest item there. Yeah. So.
The contract ended because you extended it.
1 month, but it ended today, I guess, the 15th, right?
Yes.
We'll go up. We have, I don't know. We haven't seen his last bill yet.
No, like. And we might have I don't know if the HR consultant went into the last page. But there was something for HR consultant.
So question there about the temporary labor, do we know that what a 12 is kind of good ballpark for what we have remaining after these consulting roles are, how? Because prior to this year, we have been hitting about 7,000, so just curious if that can be
I
double
think
checked.
it was, I mean, you can change it. It will use to consult if any serious HR matters and any contract negotiations come up, which one should.
There's asking if,
Sure. Be addressing with the.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that part of the regular, like, regular 7,000 expense that I'm seeing in 2023, 22? Or is that in addition to that? Just curious, just,
What's that?
so prior to 2024 actual, which is not a basic, that's not like, that's extraordinary year.
We had, yeah.
But if you look at, I know, so I'm just trying to go.
No, I agree with you.
Just looking at 2022 actual expense was 6,400 and 6,800. So I'm just trying to get a ballpark of what is the good number to aim for next year. Is 12 realistic, or can we cut that to 7 or
Well,
8?
Right, so that's what we were looking at, the past numbers, plus knowing that we wanna look at certain other things and that the contract.
That's what I was asking, whether the contract was already part of that number, it's 68 before. Seems like it's not. Okay,
So bottom line, we have to leave that at 12.
probably maybe 10, but it's probably not it.
Okay, training.
So how many employees are in HR2, right?
No,
Well, it says employee training programs and then it's budgeting for 2,000, so I'm just trying to figure out who would be trained.
So
with
that would
money.
be an employee training program from the consultant,
Okay,
any opportunities that she.
Yeah, like sexual
Gotcha.
harassment or the stuff, and that's mandatory.
Yeah, you have to.
So, yeah. Yeah,
Investigations, we have to do that every time we hire new people, so. Board of Adjustment, and they have to require the law to advertise now. We've never even come close to $1,000.
well, 2021, we were at 1,500,
No, that's true.
but other than that, we can probably move this to 600 maybe. It's not much, but you know, we're trimming everywhere else, right?
I get 500.
I don't know what, you know, 2024 is very low, so that's kind of misleading there. You know, the whole projection.
for advertising,
Mhm.
the $40 came, it was 2, I think, posts we did in a weekly.
I'm just saying it's much lower than even 2020.
Yeah, but-
That's-
By,
Yeah,
How many applications you're gonna have?
I'll defer to my senior colleagues on the council. Or,
Professional fees, Board of Adjustment, okay, that's legal and engineering, right?
with the same, right, that's fluctuating number, we could be saying, you know, we could reduce it to 5, but it could go 15.
Right, and year before it was 18.
Yeah. So there's potential there to save about, there, we cut it and 5,000 across those 2 lines. Right, potentially, but that's more mid-year review.
So in the county sewer assessment, it looks like we went over budget both the last 2 years, and now we're doing 2,500. I mean, is there something that's gonna change, or should we just go to like 30? I don't wanna raise this, but at the same point, it looks like we're spending it anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
should be raised to
Yeah,
3, yeah.
Yeah, at least go to 3, which,
Well, with this is the first year we're increasing to 25, so that's the, you know, I'm okay with 3,000, I mean, I'd rather overshoot it and then next year we can move back to 25, you know.
So, yeah, because we've gone over 3 the past 2 years, so.
You guys okay with that?
and then, so the capital reserves, I'm sorry, we good? The capital reserves for the building.
Yeah.
So we, you know, every year kind of goes all over the place. So, we're at 53, 25, 35, 80, and now we're at 100. So is there a reason we couldn't rebudget 80?
Oh, you've said that was for security upgrades.
Like lower by 20,000 is what, am I hearing that right, Joe? It could be like prior years.
yeah, these are additional upgrades that we talked about in executive session.
Okay,
and then-
I got
Okay, now we
Understand.
skipped contract services building.
That was the, to get a building appraisal done,
Oh, that's right, you
Yeah,
told us
yeah,
that
we talked
before,
about
so that was the one time.
yeah.
So just a question too, I know we're at 5,000 now on the battery park porta potties. How much does it cost us a week or a month for 2 porta potties?
Oh,
Just roughly.
yeah, but it did increase because the ADA, unit, it's a 28-day cycle, and I think it's a few hundred.
So we got enough money in our budget to have them year round if we need to.
I'm sorry.
It's 5,000 instead of the 2,000 that we've never.
Yeah, well, even if it's three.
30 is 1 month, like.
Eight, but
Yeah.
then we increased, we
Yeah.
went up because we got one ADA unit and it increased because we asked for twice a week cleaning
Yeah.
instead of once a
And
week.
the, hand sanitizer was not included, we had to add that in too.
So 300 a
Yeah, it was
month.
like 350.
So we're looking about 3,000 that we could lower this to, right?
I just wanted to make sure we had enough for all year.
That's what I'm saying, like 3,000 should cover.
They're 3,600, at least that'd be 300 a month for 12 months.
I'm going off of 231.88 that was just expended for, right? Is that?
That was the previous,
That was,
That's
that was only for like 2 days or something for Spirit of Christmas.
what charges for a month, you know, that big day.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I mean, the shorter the time period, the more you pay per
Yeah,
unit
they
of
hold
time,
them in now.
because they still have to bring them in and out. That was because that was right after the other ones were vandalized and we needed bathrooms for Spirit of Christmas. That's why that's there.
Yeah, we can go up to 300 per month then.
So that would make this 3,600 if we're gonna
Yeah.
go.
Everybody okay with that?
As long as we got enough for all year.
I don't think we don't even have to extend that.
Okay, can you just, sorry, just adjust this number based on what you
Yeah,
just expended on, because you're adding those, you know. ADA, but you're also saying
Yeah.
setting up, so you can just use that number. To Joe's point, let's just make sure it's, you know, a number that we,
Yeah, and this first bill that we'll get will be more than the monthly.
Yeah.
Because they have to drop it off and everything.
Right on the corner.
Okay, so liability insurance.
Can we just cut that?
I don't know, I think somebody threatened to sue us today, so. Well, not me personally, he was gonna sue the city. Our friend, Mr. Bolton.
Bill Emery?
No, Bolton Burkle. Oh, the person who lives out, not Bill Emery.
proper liability insurance line. If we, this is just insurance company numbers going up higher, my understanding there.
And that's a. Protected, yeah, it's not actual.
Yes, this is the Newcastle insurance that we have in town. Is that correct?
I strongly suggest we look elsewhere,
I'm
Yeah,
just
that's-
wondering if this is a.
because I found whenever I've called him for any kind of insurance thing, much higher than where I wind up going.
We already renewed, is this number that cannot be negotiated before July? Or can we start looking at all?
It would take a long time to, you know, put it out that we're looking at other companies, and just because it takes a while for them to get those numbers to us. But this is something I certainly want to look at for next year.
And is this the annual contract or is this a monthly? Like even if we go, okay, so then it doesn't make sense to go right now.
Right.
Work. To live with this number for a year, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, I mean, 40,000 to go, you know, in 1 year is just. Little extreme, I guess, just considering how small that increase was in property, I guess.
Oh, you're talking about the property.
Property liability, yes.
The second one, not the police liability.
Have we had like an inordinate amount of claims? You probably haven't had an inordinate amount of claims.
No, I
Right.
don't think so.
But that's for all of our properties, right? The parks and the buildings. and-
Yes,
I know, but I'm just looking at increases from year to year, 6,000 from 20 to 21, you know.
they told us
14 and one.
it's projected to go up a lot more this year.
I mean, that's if
Having another
somebody
COVID.
trips over a brick and sues us. If they trip on the sidewalk and sue, I would think that's part of that.
I think what we've seen is insurance has been hit by inflation more than any product,
Yeah,
27%.
or the health insurance, yeah.
Yeah, and I will certainly be looking into that as well.
Ooh, the workers' comp doubled.
Yeah,
That was more of a placeholder. She wanted, Antonina wanted to put, just uncertainty of the current
Yeah,
contracts.
we'll certainly lower that, but we don't know what it'll be.
Oh, okay.
We are hoping to get an estimate again in the coming weeks. But with salaries increasing or having the potential to increase, we have.
So is that based on a percentage of that's right, because workers' comp is paid as a percent of salary. Unemployment insurance, that's pretty fixed, right?
That's, yeah, so we're.
Based on number of employees, right? And our, like, history of layoffs, does that enter into it?
I don't know how they come up with their method.
But that's through the
But-
state, right?
Yeah.
So we can't like search for another vendor.
Yeah.
City engineer. Solicitor, yes, speak.
The next one I got to was the hack architect,
Yes.
and we're at 14.5, we budgeted 21.5.
Then remember, we added the 7,000 to that line for a potential grant match. We will create another line item, but we can't do it right now because this budget is still,
What was the grant match for again?
it's. I forget
It's some-
it's a historic preservation grant, but I forget the exact title.
That's fine.
Yeah, I do too. It's a state,
Yeah,
it's a state thing and it's like 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah.
We have to provide a 50% match or,
25 or something like that. Yeah, I don't remember the exact amount.
like, and then it's a grant they won't even apply for till like December or January, but we had to get it in this fiscal year's budget because and I assume they have a project they want to do with it.
Yeah, I think they have a couple of ideas.
I mean, it's not directly to fund restoration of a building.
No.
It's like
Overall.
information services and such stuff. Like the last grant they used to prepare that guide that's online. The guide for residents about hack and what the requirements are, the different styles of buildings and all those pictures of and drawings of different styles of buildings. So it's that kind of thing that they use it for.
So I didn't see anything on the next page either, but when what is the accrued benefits?
Yeah, same.
Let's see, it's just standard 50,000 across the board. And that's what we're budgeting, I'm just curious.
What page are we? Sorry.
I'm sorry, 20, the last line on page 20.
Yeah, it's just a flat. Yeah, we always pay it. It's always, well, 1 year back in 21, it was 75.
Or can you, share, who is putting this in there?
This is what was done
In the
prior
past,
to us arriving. They just put 50.
Placeholder?
Yeah, they
or
just
something?
put 50,000.
But
It's
we
just weird that it's, evens out, there's no
We
sense,
spent it.
nothing, like it's just,
makes it look like it's a flat payment or something.
yeah.
It runs like it's an account, but you don't really, I don't know how to put it into words.
It
It
was
doesn't
difficult
go-
for Bill Barthel to explain too.
Yeah, and I never really got a real reason. When I came in, they said they put the 50,000.
Can we,
Where does it go?
can we find out a little
It
more?
doesn't-
Is that what you said?
go in, it's still,
But it's shown as being spent every year.
yeah, cause how it gets put into,
It's like some fund that gets drawn on in the case of other emergencies or not emergencies, but
to be honest, I don't know exactly what it was.
Can it disappear?
Looked it up just because I never heard it before. And it says accrued benefits are benefits that the employee has earned based on their service or other criteria, but that are payable to the employee at some later date. So if you have banked vacation or,
that you get paid out at retirement, then they go into a fund that then pays that.
I was about to say, there's a separate line.
Oh, the buyback, but that's different than being paid out at
We
retirement.
do have a fund for when employees do retire that sell back their vacation, like if no, we get a different line, but this 50 is probably funding that account. So if an employee leaves or terminated and they walk away with their vacation, we don't wanna hit our actual salary line. So it hits the salary, which probably is this funded from this fiscal. But I can look into.
Yeah, you could
see
just-
that.
yeah.
so you'd have to see what you have to say about whether we should lower it or we can, or we just leave it.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
it's a good exercise.
All right. So do we want to walk through revenue again? And see if we,
I was gonna say, I think we did, but we can certainly. look at it.
Yeah, I think there's those two things that we mentioned, but yeah, I think we should just do.
We're raising tax transfers to 400.
Yes.
Raise what, I'm sorry, where?
Just a second, guys, let me add up what we have. Yeah.
22, third line, property tax transfers,
Okay, yes.
raised to 400, we said. Could we raise on page 24, the interest? We budgeted 50,000, but this year we got 234. Last year we got 127. Because
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
we didn't come up
And if
with a
we
number.
want to, but we don't know, because as we use it, you know, obviously.
Well, yeah, I'm not suggesting like make it
Yeah,
200, but maybe 75.
yeah, I think that would be safe.
The police pension supplement, that's something that comes from the state, right?
Do you need more numbers? Because I wrote them all down.
No, I'm with you, thank you.
Yes, but it's also something we kick out, like we pay the pension upfront. And then later on, they
We
don't
get the reimbursement later.
yeah, but they don't reimburse 100%. I don't know what their percentage it is, but they give us back.
And I see the numbers all over the map, so it's really hard to project.
It just depends on when it comes in. Sometimes, I think the last payment is supposed to come in June. But because they send it ACH, sometimes it comes in July, and because it's an ACH, you can't backdate it. I have to hit it will go into next year, so that's why.
Oh, okay,
This
they pay
one is-
quarterly, but it depends on when it hits. It
Yeah.
may bump it into the next fiscal year.
So this current one is so high because we actually received the payment from the prior year
Oh, God.
and this year. By the time it came in, it was like July or August.
What line were you talking about? I'm sorry, I missed that.
25, first one, right?
Page
Pension
25.
Second to last.
Okay, so can we go back, I'm sorry, to 23, and I just had two questions. One is, what is the engineering planning development reimbursement line? Well, I see we budgeted 1,500 the past 2 years, we've gotten much more than that, but I understood the code enforcement reimbursement when we expend money, but what is the reimbursement for engineering and planning development?
We have a fee for, development plans.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say,
Well,
when
we
it
do, but
develops,
why would it say reimbursement?
because doesn't, we have to pay the engineer, but
Yeah.
then we get reimbursed by the developer? Is that what it is?
Oh,
Should really be called something like development fees
I
or
got it.
something like
So
that.
we're paying the planner to look at it, and then the developer pays us back, yeah.
But we charge them what we charge.
Right.
Our engineer for it, okay. But yeah, it could easily be 5,000, like minus the 2021 year, but you know, perhaps pandemic had something to do with that too. So, because outside of that year, we have collected 50 to 100 minimum. You know, so
Yeah, that's just another thing that it's hard to say.
it's, that's, yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
there's
But,
that
I mean-
little year,
You could.
Based on the
like
prior.
3,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think even that's better than where we're at. I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
The only
Three?
one-
Yeah.
the only other one that I had on that page was the Verizon.
Yeah,
And I see we're at 85, 84, then 97, now we're at 101, and we're budgeting 84.
Yeah.
Is there,
How does that work? I thought it was a fixed number.
I'm sorry, the Verizon, the last page on the line, or the last line on the
91?
page.
page 23, last line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it skips over. Um.
We could increase that.
So can you explain, I thought this was a fixed number, so it's not, this is like,
It is, but it could, once again, it's an ACH that received, it could just be a timing of when we were, like the last one.
but it's still,
But it
you know,
wouldn't
even
affect
last year
here.
was 97, so,
Right.
you know, like, even if they rolled from the prior year, it was 84, so it's definitely more than 84, it seems.
I'm saying we do
Yeah, I think
95.
they've just been put in 80. But,
What did you say, Joe, 95?
I think 95 looks conservative over the past 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're running out of things to change. And I'm sure our deficit's still pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, that's 95 is average of across the last 3 years, so, you know, that's probably still undershot, but yeah.
So that's Verizon have service within our phone?
Yeah,
Say that again?
rain last year.
This is income.
Which is great, but then where's Comcast?
I don't- Comcast is like a whole different animal, because I know when,
I don't know. I don't have any.
Well, if we're charging Verizon to be here,
Well, I don't know that franchise fees line above that is not Comcast though. That might be Comcast.
okay,
I don't know that there's another franchise fee here.
but I was told also that they're licensed differently, Comcast versus
Yeah, I did
Verizon.
hear that too.
And then when it came up when we were talking about, when we were putting the electric lines underground, we wanted to put the cable lines under too. And I guess Comcast was willing to do it, but
One was-
Verizon was not, one or the other. And we were told we couldn't force them because they're licensed in a different way than the one that did agree to put them underground. I can't remember which was which now.
Right.
But, apparent, whatever reason, their licensing is different, and I don't think it's their licensing with us, I think there's a state or maybe the local. So we don't have any control of it, it's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Danina, what was your response to, Brian's question about MSC appropriation page?
I need to get further clarification.
It's a fixed percentage of theirs.
Yeah.
Has that been renegotiated? Has that been done in the past, do you think? I think that's what Brian was saying.
I think he's the one who kind of unleashed it, but you don't want to go back and do that. I
Yeah, of course.
But wasn't that part when the charter changed?
think so. I'd have to.
No, it was not something we can just renegotiate with them, we have to go through the legislator to change.
If it's a percentage and it's in the charter, then yeah, you would have
Oh,
to.
we should look at their annual reports to see that portion, you know, increasing or staying flat for them too, because if they're increasing profits and we're staying.
Well, they're nonprofit, aren't they?
Well, basically, I think it's just something, they used to pay us monthly or something else, and it was, and then John got this fee, which is a better thing.
I vaguely remember this too.
I know, and it was right before I was on council and I only heard talk. So it was, but you know, their costs are going up. They just renegotiated their contracts, or their union stuff. And, you know, so, and the price for our electric is going up, sorry, you're gonna get another 3%.
Yeah.
So.
But it wasn't their decision, it was, you know.
No,
right?
but at Lewis, it had to go up 10%, so we're kind of, so it's not, yeah.
But there, basically, this is not something that's set in a, you know, in stone that we cannot renegotiate to be more dynamic.
I think it would be,
Because it seems to be a fixed number right now.
I think it would, well, it could probably be renegotiate, but that's the process to renegotiate it. If remembering what we heard requires charter change, that like would just be on the back burner. Because it's too late. We would have to get any charter change. We would have to submit what we wanted in January or February of next year, and then and so we're late to the
I
game.
think
with that.
it's a great, idea.
But in terms of,
Probably enough for next year even, just to, start
yeah,
this right now, because I think there was some other items that were talking about charter changes in general that could all, be.
Because there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of things, there's the election still,
this, I think you're saying it's fixed number.
It is year to year, like.
Budget, we budget a fixed number, the amount that we actually receive is fluctuating.
But it is about the same amount a year, so. I would like to see a contract, I guess, of what it is currently, is it a percentage of the profit, or is it, because it could be just one of those things that. We were told about, perhaps the payment was just rolled over or something, into another year, that's why one year is higher, the other one is lower, I don't know, I guess.
not a huge change, and we just haven't received the last
Mhm.
one yet.
No, they,
Yeah, so. Okay.
Worth exploring, it might not change.
Well, it is interesting to know what the contract says too,
Yeah.
because it may be less too, and we got a bigger problem.
So-
I mean, so we're all on the same page.
I doubt the thing that would come to us probably. Okay, but yeah.
Did you wanna start looking at contributions?
Let me just finish down this here. Nobody saw anything else? Got it? Yep, yeah, we should. That's not mine. $87,500 increase revenue, guys, just an FYI, just right now that what we've done in revenue side. $87,500 across property tax, interest, and then $1,500 that we increased, each.
We've raised the estimated
Yeah,
revenue.
And then
87.
11,000 that we proposed. So, yeah.
What were the cut total?
That one's a little more complicated because there's some that I was noting here that are still potential to be discussed. So anywhere between 150 to 250 potential cuts,
Okay.
depending on where we go in some of these
Way
things.
to go.
And then at 87.5 in revenue side, so anywhere from $230,000 to $300,000 total, it seems, 200 to 330, something. So yeah, I mean, we're getting somewhere. And this is not talking about contributions at all, but yeah, so. Once again. Revenue is much clearer because there was just 4 different items that we discussed. Engineering, planning, basically developments. The right, And then, I'll start with the largest item, Goodwill, on a contribution, just because their last year's request was much lower, if my memory serves me right. So I think this opportunity was last meeting when the chief was here to ask why that is the case, why the increase.
I think
From year to
he,
year.
I think he did mention it at the last meeting,
He did?
right, and he said, operating expenses.
Joe's familiar with this.
But wasn't it 10,000 or 15 last year?
It was 30.
It was our next year.
Mhm.
For the regular, then we added the
Yeah,
extra,
We did it.
out of ARPA money, which is a
SCBA.
whole separate pot of money.
Right.
So,
And this is no different than any other fire company. There's no volunteers left.
No,
so they have to
yeah.
pay more
That's
staff.
why they're asking. That's what it is, yep. Unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, 30, okay.
I guess I would say that the ones that this probably makes the biggest difference to, as opposed for their total budget, are the senior center and the historical society, and maybe Arisafa, because Arisafa uses that for the wreath and the Christmas decorations.
Yes.
And they get an equivalent amount from the trust and they raise money as well for it, towards it. But, I mean, the 10 is a minor part of the library's total budget. You know, they get the bulk of their money from the state. So, from others than the county. And of course, the trust maintains their building, which is a big deal for them. But I know the Historical Society is kind of hanging on by its fingernails. And the senior center's struggling also since they lost the rental from the medical offices.
But they don't even make an effort to rent outside. The main building, they don't do it.
I thought they did some because that was one of the things we had to take into consideration in planning for the AV system. We couldn't do certain things because that would spoil the program.
Can you, I can't remember the last, I was told they're not doing it because.
The mayor's talking about they rent to the city, but not other people.
Yeah, that's like for weddings and
Yeah, they're not
not
doing-
weddings, but bridal showers and baby showers.
Because they don't have the staff to stay there and do everything. That is what I've heard more than once. Because, and if you think about it, like, when's the last time you saw an event there? I mean, we would, you walk and it's right by your house.
Yeah, I'd see there are a bunch
Okay.
of cars there, so
Yeah,
I
but-
know that on a Saturday afternoon and something's going on because
Right,
that's
but
not
there's-
normal hours.
Have you seen?
No, come to think of it. But then I think they use the money they asked for us, not for regular operating expenses, but for things like exercise. I think an exercise, there was an exercise program that we were funding last year, I think. And so basically, if we didn't give them the money, there wouldn't be this exercise.
Right, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that I would really love to see them get back into renting a facility and how.
But again, they have costs incurred in doing that,
Yeah.
and so it becomes a trade-off. How much are they really making if they have to pay somebody to lock and unlock and stay there during the event? And in the winter, there's heat, and in summer, there's air conditioning and so on, so.
But based upon our budget, we're having major issues this year.
Right.
So we need to cut back. Based on necessities of our community, definitely I think we should hit goodwill, and since our Safa has been helping us and I'm basically putting the reef stuff all over the place for within our town and on our buildings. Otherwise, I think everything else, I think is potentially things that we could drop this year. I know it's not ideal, but we're what, $400,000 off right now, and we haven't even taken care of the budget yet for relocations.
I move that we discuss contributions last, once we actually know the new adjusted budget, because it's gonna be difficult to make a decision, right? We can propose things right now, but I think it's just difficult because I'm looking at the senior center. I think we should fund it because we have so many people in town who need programming, like there's a pandemic of loneliness for senior citizens. And, this is one of those outlets that people can utilize for some of these programs that will be funded out of this $5,000 that they wouldn't have otherwise,
You're gonna have the same thing with kids in the library. and
I
stuff like that.
I understand, but we have, our city is demographic wise, seeing increase in elderly population, so it's just a fact, so if we're looking at that, then, this would be somewhere we need to prioritize our spending. When it comes to
People
contributions.
usually ask for grants and they throw a little bit more on the wall to see what sticks.
My other comment was, once we learned from Joe how much we're saving on the mobile stage, we could potentially discuss of moving some of this percentage of these requests to ARPA funds too, so that, we're not looking at 99,000 out of general fund, but rather 70, 60,000, I don't know how much we end up saving there, we can repurpose for that. So anyways, just another thought, but it's hard not knowing what we're gonna come back with negotiations, like what this whole.
Oh, I know, that makes it
Like,
very
it's
difficult.
difficult, are we okay, are we bad?
The one thing I'll say about all these organizations, is this is what makes Newcastle great.
Yeah,
So you have so many people, and you gotta make some tough decisions, but even if we cut 20% of this, it's such a small
Right.
piece, you know what I mean? It's not even $100,000 in a budget. And like I said, when you look at this and you think about all the individuals involved in each of these groups that do so much for the city, you know, I would agree, we should probably see where we're at and then, you know, kind of make a judgment call at that point.
I agree that these, organizations are what make us different. And, you know, the city weathered the storm, obviously, through the pandemic and COVID, but so did these organizations. And, you know, I personally, I just, when we look at the amounts, and we got the elephant in the room with the, contract that has to go in here. But, I would be in support of, funding these, to a certain level through ARPA funds. Because ARPA, you know, we have it in the general fund. But ARPA was to kind of, one of the big initiatives was to kind of build communities and to get people socializing and doing things. And that's what all these organizations speak to.
But that would set, using the ARPA funds would set a precedent for using it going forward. And it's, you're not always gonna have those ARPA funds. What happens when they're all gone? And now you're using this. And in fact, I was looking at this list of ARPA funds, but I remember all of these things being part of it. And some of these were, maybe I just need reminding on some of it, like our payroll expenditure increase that came out of ARPA.
Oh, that's,
It's a
it's
personal
a
matter.
personal, it's
Oh.
executive session.
Okay, executive
Decision,
session.
yeah.
All right, okay.
Um,
The AV equipment,
Well, that's to help people participate better at the senior center.
That's that little microphone that
Yeah,
we.
The mic-
We that.
We heard that last night about people couldn't hear.
That's the Zoom.
That's the senior
that's
center.
Zoom.
Oh, that's,
The equipment is this camera right
Yeah,
here.
right there.
oh, that's right.
okay.
Yeah, that's the 3,700. The 37,000 is the AV for the
Yeah.
senior center.
police cameras, garbage truck, police cars. I see that we've spent quite a bit less.
It's a lot here.
Still need to-
Over here.
Okay, new garbage truck explains itself. Legal fee?
So, all the municipalities have the option to partake in a separate, like, rate for legal fees with a firm that is gonna specialize in ARPA.
Okay.
And then approval and all that.
Make sure- So we didn't have to pay it back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that it sets precedent. One thing we discussed earlier, that it wouldn't be the same, your municipality raised the taxes. I don't know if you were in a room at that point that we're seriously discussing an increase. So it wouldn't hit until next year, but that's the situation we're in because health alone is something we cannot move, but it's increased by 27% this year. So it wasn't aligned in our way in the sense that we should have planned these other revenue increases to time, some of these,
So, looking
other increases.
at your contributions, because I may not be able to make the meeting when you do discuss this, I'll be brief. So like I said, people throw everything on the wall, and they see what they get, but they're right. If we had, it would cost us a lot more if we had to pay people to do a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I feel the gap.
But like, and I know you guys are gonna hate this part, but for this year, a community collaboration, I never even heard of them. I was reading the letter that we have here. Is that something that should be funded this year? And Encore, they want the 5,000 to do social media, an email, and a website. And,
Audit as well, maybe.
there's audit's not in here. I was just reading right here. To host the-
Number 5 is, Number 5, prepare financial documents for grants, which are committed,
and conduct,
for the city.
so,
So, I don't know if that's like similar to feed to their paper, that I'm not sure, but yeah. The thing about Encore is this thing for every one of these nonprofits, honestly, is that this 5,000 we get, for example, in the case of Encore, just to make that, that money comes back to the city in some other form, everything that they do is for the, city, same thing in Newcastle, partnership with our SAPA, Goodwill Library, like all that stuff that you see, it comes back.
It
To the
does,
city.
and I've just been an advocate for them,
Yeah.
and.
I wasn't a part of the previous conversations, but I understand precedent. Sometimes you have to do that. Precedent has already been set in regards to ARPA funds, and I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. But I just wish that people had that same energy when that conversation was on the table. I stand with these organizations and I think they're worthwhile. I think we can, maybe look at the numbers, but I just wish that same energy occurred before.
If we can wait until the budget is finalized with the contract negotiations to tackle this, because for city to cut these organizations.
You
From
can't cut them,
funding.
they'll have a hard time operating.
That's what I'm saying, that's part of my argument is that, they would have a big hole in their budget, NCCP, for example, needs. Based on what I'm looking, they need 2,500 or 2,800, so like, even this is under, they're gonna be, so like, I was about to propose.
I haven't seen
You
it.
know, yeah,
so
so-
I don't know.
NTCP.
Yeah, right, I
Yeah,
don't
this
know.
is just me reading their financial report last year.
They usually are matching thing. We'll give X if you give.
It was just an example of me saying, like if anything,
The park function, we did put that in the budget.
yeah,
2,000, but I did speak to them. And they're gonna look at.
I think what I'm trying to say is that, like, maybe there's a small portion of library, for example, and maybe even Goodwill, but without these funds, they would be in a big hole with some of the programming that we have to decide and cut, that we as a city wouldn't be able to fulfill with $100,000. I doubt, right? So the return on investment is there is what I'm trying to say. But if we can look at the budget first, big unknown right now, we know what they said.
But you gotta find out if you increase from 120 to 100, what that's actually gonna get you.
And how we have to go about doing that, down by resolution or has to be an ordinance and.
I do think it's by resolution, but you might want to have a public workshop about it and, talk to the public, invite the public to.
Yeah, certainly don't want to give the impression that it was done behind closed
Right,
doors.
right.
Or at a meeting like this that very few people attend.
Yeah, I mean, these are all public meetings, but you want to certainly invite the public.
And thinking more long range, I have to throw one more thing out there that I mentioned last night. The Congress apparently significantly cut the budget for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is the organization that was going to fund our big flood protection program. At this point, instead of just saying, okay, you're in, and because obviously it's going to spread out over multiple years, they're saying the allocations may be year by year. So potentially, for example, we could get 2 million of the 37.5 that was originally mentioned for the first year, and that probably would cover most of the engineering study, which that's fine. But then, so at the end of the study, they recommend that we build whatever, and council accepts that recommendation. If Congress hasn't allocated more money, I mean, that gets so huge that this is, our current money is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
But I still think we have to sort of keep it in mind, because we may be expected to match something. It's hard to know. The chair of the flood resiliency committee reached out to Senator Carper's office, got a response within a few hours. They've scheduled a phone meeting for next week.
Okay.
So, we are getting some response and potentially from Carper, maybe first. They sent it to all three, Carper, Coons, and Rochester. But they got the response from Carper's office because I think he feels more of a tie to Newcastle than the others. That may help. We can keep our fingers crossed, but and surely, long term protecting the city from flooding is a very significant thing that has been done. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, I guess
put
the
that.
community collaboration prevention program is mentioned several times, but what's the prevention program? What is the program? Oh, it doesn't really tell you.
Vision Harbor.
No. Do you wanna send these to me?
Yeah.
And that way.
I did that too, but black is great.
That's great. And that's the time it works. Okay. Can you just send us an email?
So what else do we want to do this evening?
I'll take.
Council, I know this.
Alright.
Council, revised, request for, phase two of the playground. To be funded at ARPA funds. Having said all this tonight, so I don't know if council is ready to discuss that at all.
I'll be honest, I would rather wait to determine the ARPA funding until after we've done the budget. Particularly if we have to hit on the ARPA money for some of our basic budgetary items. That's gonna impact our decisions about other uses for the ARPA money. And we're not facing the deadline for the ARPA money that we are for the budget. So I would like to defer that conversation until we've arrived at a final budget. But I don't know what other.
So we'll always, ARPA will be there. It's not gonna go away.
And,
No, I know, but
and
it
it's
would
not
be-
just gonna get spent without our knowledge, because we're the ones who control what
Yeah.
it's spent for. So I'm not suggesting we never look at these proposals, but that we wait until after we've passed the budget. And things are at least a little more certain than they are right now. And so that's my opinion. What do other people think?
Everybody's looking at their phone.
I mean, I'm just thinking, because I'm conflicted, like, because we have moved it to general fund, but it's still, so we're moving to general fund, but it's still ARPA, so it's kind of difficult for me to process it all. I definitely think we should finalize general fund. Because it's a lot of unknowns to even talk about contributions or even ARPA expenditures to be added to,
So the playground
so
was
yes.
moved to general fund?
No, entire ARPA funding
No.
has been moved to general fund, is
Oh.
what I've been,
And the other issue with the playground is we've applied for a significant money from the bond bill for the playground. I understand Encore has applied for a number of grants from various foundations for the playground. And a lot of those are targeted to specific things, and sometimes they're the same specific thing.
I don't know.
But either way, I think it makes more sense to wait until we see the outcome of these requests. We'll know in July about the bond bill. So that's a big chunk. I don't know how long these other foundations take to make their decision. It probably varies from organization to organization, but
I think there's 2 grants that have been submitted, I believe.
Oh, there's a whole bunch in this list.
No, but that's what they're planning on submitting. So there's 2, 4, 6, 7 grants totaling 710,000. So that's the return on investment, potentially getting that into the playground equipment for the city. This is not even including RPT or bond bill that city is submitting, right? So this is just 710 that would potentially come out of foundation funding. But I know that 2 of these, I think welfare, 100,000, and 1 more, I don't know which one. The application until there's a match from the city. So like if we're to award as a city funding from ARPA or whatever other funds, that's when
that helps
the
them
Encore,
get some of
that's the only time when Encore can start to submit. For
for
this grant.
those, but for the ones that they have submitted, there's no match request.
Not for those, the only ARP for the shaded benches, but that we already have put in aside in equipment for the playground.
Oh, that's the eight
That's
thousand.
8,000, yes.
And NTCP said that they would also contribute to that.
Yeah, so that's the part that is already in.
But
Um,
even so, I think it makes sense to have a clearer idea of where all that stands before we move forward. And like I said, the money's not going anywhere without our knowledge. It's not like anybody else can come in and say, well, I'm gonna spend this to pay for whatever, because we're the ones who make that decision.
Yeah.
So if we decide we're gonna hold off and make that decision after we finalize our budget, and in terms of the playground requests, we wait to see the outcome of these foundation requests and the bond bill, then we have a clearer picture of how things balance out.
I'm okay waiting, but I would like to just make two formal requests, even if we discuss it later. We don't have to comment at all, like, if that's okay with council, just for the record. So I have, since last meeting, I thought about the request for playground and, you know, I still want to move on with the request. Once again, we can be done with the meeting after I say these things. The 250 for phase 2 that I requested last week and 100,000 for citywide, totaling 350. I emailed council, asking for 150 total for phase 2 only. So that was the total asset, and I shared the materials with you, so.
I remember.
No comments needed right now. I'm okay with waiting for the budget to be finalized. That's definitely priority for the city. And then the only other request that I don't have a full quote on, but I really think we should prioritize the city. You know, our budget is outdoor chess. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was the loneliness pandemic, especially for, you know, elderly population. And I think this will be a great gathering, kind of location, and not a great investment as our city, but great kind of hub, if you will, where, well, not just elderly people always just could meet and, you know, play a game of chess, but more so socialize, you know. So I think that would be that's a goal and vision there. I think two costs are there, just the expense of the chess, you know, which is, I think the big chess is about 3,000, is that what you looked up online?
Yeah, there were a
Ballpark.
couple of variations and I wanna make sure it's good enough for a
Yeah,
large
yeah,
playground
yeah.
like ours, but yeah, but it's anywhere from like 2 to.
It's 3,000,
Yeah.
I think. And then the biggest other expense that I think is the pavers. So that's really asking Public Works, how much would that really be? I have no idea how to put a quote on that. So those are the two expenses that I think would be there. So I have no idea what it will be, but that's just something I wanted to bring to council to start thinking about. It can be, you know.
I think we need to have grants.
Yeah, that's all I had.
I was gonna say, coming into this, I had no idea that we were that far off. We were.
Same, yeah.
Spread that, I had no idea. I thought we might be, you know, 150 or 200 or something. I had no idea that we were that far off. But when we meet again, obviously you'll tell us where we're at with the adjustments.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to see you come with some recommendations,
Yeah,
whether you believe in them all or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the menu of recommendations. Hey, we could do this, we could do this.
Yeah.
We could cut these projects, move them, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
and we didn't wanna start doing that,
Be
because we
really
wanted
good.
to present,
Yep.
like, this is what everybody's asking for, we do know that we do have a problem on our hand, and that's why I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, these every negotiations are not complete, these numbers will
Yeah.
increase, we will affect our budget, so.
Yep.
I agree, I second that. Another thing, if you guys wouldn't mind adding, is just like identifying in a budget document, what is grant funded, whether that's, you know, just to help kind of like what is not coming. I know it's shown in revenue side, but just to kind of know what is the grant. I don't know how we can indicate it, but we'll just be like body cameras.
Yeah.
Like, I
Well,
know it balances out just for future, so we know kind of, we can just skip those lines, basically, that's kind of my point. No matter what the amount is, it's, you know, paid on the other end.
Yeah.
Cause I ask those questions every time and it's, you know, could save you guys time.
Do we have a date that we're meeting again?
Could be neat.
How much time do you guys need to do what you need to do?
You need to do the things you do.
1 second.
Yeah, I mean,
While you're looking that up, thank you guys for diligence tonight. This was quite an exercise.
Yeah, applause.
yeah. Yeah, I mean.
George Point within that tightness,
Nah, I
It's
didn't.
under-
I had no idea.
yeah, you know, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you know.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, without.
even if we bridge the gap 300 tonight, if we cut everything in there, the request. And we would still have to cut most of our projects to get there.
Yeah.
Right,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
even if we didn't give up,
Personnel,
that gets us up earlier to.
exactly, still a big gap, no matter what we do.
Could we, meet on the 29th or 28th? At least give us next week to work on some things and.
I will not be
Oh,
here, so
right,
Joe,
right.
can you preside?
I can't do the. Sitting here saying something, I better look at myself.
recall the numbers being that stark.
Well, what I can tell you, in the last budget, like all the revenue numbers were always very low and conservative. You know what I mean? And so it was a lot easier to bridge the gap. And now we're pushing them a little bit, we're pushing them to the limits too.
And the gap wasn't as big,
No,
and we didn't have to think about the police
and
contract.
we didn't have to ask for a lot.
Valley, there's a lot of those contracts that we. I mean, significant.
Yeah.
The health insurance, 27% increase certainly doesn't help.
No,
And I think, you know, things may not have been done previously that we want to accomplish now.
and we wanna add more people to help service the people within our community that has been
Right,
lacking.
and
Well, I think that's one of the ways the city kept funds, kept on budget, was they lose somebody and didn't hire somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why we are down people.
Right.
That's why
I
we're,
understand
where we're at right now.
It is.
Points that if you have to raise the tax rate, because that here literally 26% increase on this, X on this,
Yeah.
X on this.
And you can definitely make an argument to do that with everybody, all of us have it, even in our households. With inflation and gas and everything else, we've all seen increases. But really, you almost need to get in kind of a cycle where you're evaluating taxes, you know what I mean, every 5 years, every 10 years, whatever you do.
And we have 16, and there's, you know, we hear from people like tax increase would stretch budgets, as we get them. Some of our more mature and get them, what is it, after 65?
But they all, for the city tax, they have to have a limited income too.
Right, yeah.
The county tax, it's strictly if you meet the age, you get the break, but not for the city.
Oh, okay, so, but, you know, there's a lot of people who say, why don't we should have raised the tax, we need to raise it.
Oh, I've heard that too.
16 years.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean,
Our next meeting,
Yeah, so the won't work.
can we do the 30th by chance?
That won't give us enough time. Oh. The 30th,
It's a Thursday night.
It's a Thursday.
would you be against moving it to June 3rd, the Monday? Let me just check. The tree advisory commission, their meeting's at 5. If we
June
did
3rd,
that,
that'd be fine.
That's fine.
Sorry with me.
I'm just checking my personal account.
Okay.
Do we need an executive session and a,
Yeah, because hopefully have a,
Vote that day?
Well, the tree meeting at 5.
Since-
but we've been doing the executive session about the contract at the city office.
It's just, would we have someone to stop
Right, and have to check with their stuff,
Oh, true.
and the equipment?
right?
Well, we need
Let
executive
me
that here, just to make it easier on whoever is here already doing this.
Susan,
remember
the tree could always meet in the office, so that,
Right now.
Yeah.
Somebody have to let them in, but,
yeah, but they could meet in the office before, that way they wouldn't have to move the equipment.
oh, because they get recorded
They
too,
get
that's
recorded
right.
too.
So the tree commission met in the city office, because there's what, 5 or 6 of them?
But it's a public meeting, right?
It's a public
So-
meeting,
But
but
did they
How
get
many
many?
people you have touched with?
very few.
You
people.
never know.
I know,
Pending.
But there's room in that conference room for a few
Mhm.
members of the public who might.
Exactly.
Do they ever get members of the public?
Occasionally, you
One or
know,
two.
if someone has submitted an application, they would, sometimes they come, sometimes they don't come.
Do the Tuesday to just make it easier.
The 4th is the trustees for me. The 4th, the first Tuesday of the month is
Okay.
trustees. But again, someone else can. do the equipment.
Sunday the 9th. Hopefully.
if you moved this, I'm not even talking about me, but if you moved it to the 10th, would you, how, without,
That would be fine.
but what about the police negotiation?
I'm only ready being late. tonight.
Better.
I would hope to have a better, narrowed down number by that point. But I can't.
Yeah,
make
we
it-
ideally would have one on that Monday and then on again, you know, like 7 days, just as a whole, you know, to have,
Because your next council meeting's the 11th.
The next night, yeah.
and we should.
So But Suzanne would be back and it's good to have
Yeah.
her.
I was
You know,
Oh, you're not back on,
I get back on the 9th, the afternoon of the 9th, assuming that the flight doesn't get delayed.
but you wouldn't be here on the third one? the
No,
third that we're
no,
talking-
we've gone from the 20th of May to the 9th of June.
Okay.
Yeah. Booked this trip long before I knew I'd be out the month.
Right up against it if we're not meeting until June 10th too. So
Let's gather for this next week.
special council meeting at the end of the month.
And if we pass it by.
I don't know
the
that we can
well,
have the
28th.
budget vote on at the next council meeting.
I didn't say, I didn't.
No, I just.
Yeah. The deadline, I guess, is the 28th for passing the budget, since that's a Friday. The 30th is a Sunday, right? So,
You have,
well, yeah, there's nothing that says we can't do it on the
but you
weekend.
prefer.
Now you guys are breaking up my vacation in July, because I'll be at the beach.
Well, that's July.
Here.
July,
That's-
it's late. Yep,
Oh, we have the specials,
You have to do it by the end of June.
have to do it by the end.
so we'll just special, okay.
They'll just have special meeting.
Then we'll be having a 3 AM meeting here, like doing blood call.
So are we doing a meeting on the third? Or are we going to the 10th?
Are they going on to the tenth?
How long do the TAC meetings last?
An hour at the most.
Okay, so let's do an executive session at 6, and the budget
When?
meeting
Okay.
at 7, on June 3rd. Is that okay with everyone?
It's just she won't be here.
Yeah,
And we
I
can't.
leave
post-
Monday, it's coming Monday, the 20th.
Oh, 20th, so yeah, you wouldn't be able to come next week then?
No.
No matter. I was just thinking if there's a benefit of meeting on 23rd or being not there, which you can't prep everything.
yeah, we
You
go.
do.
Would you be Zoom?
I'll be in England, so the
Okay.
time zone, 5 hours would make it tough.
For me, yeah, for.
Good at me.
May I suggest, just because she set up meetings for all of June, whether or not you needed them,
Yeah.
but they were set up and ready to go. So you might want to consider you're the 3rd, you're the 10th, you're the 17th, you're the 24th, whatever it is. You may want to consider just save the date, you know? And she puts it out there in that way, because I know there are times it's like, oh, we didn't need the last meeting or
Hey,
two.
we would often post meetings that we didn't need if we
Yeah.
finished the budget.
That's fine. Let's do the 3rd and the 10th for right now.
Okay,
And
so,
then-
so the 10th at 6, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll need probably another executive session.
Yeah, just keep Mondays probably.
Yeah, except the 17th, because
Easy.
that's the playground subcommittee, or I guess we could.
Okay, so that's at
Why
6.
don't you just keep the budget is.
The 17th is religious holiday for me, so.
No, I'm not canceling. I'm just saying it's already scheduled, so we could hold it after.
Oh,
We would
yes.
just have
So
to keep
we're-
this
are we-
75.
I'm saying, I can't make the 7th, I won't even be at the playground.
I won't be here for the 17th either. I got Phillies games, Phillies tickets that night.
18th works.
So,
Yeah,
we're gonna
18, 19
be done and start at the city office at 6 and then move up here?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
make sure, I just want to make sure I was putting the right things on my calendar.
Okay, so.
Well, 19 doesn't work because it's Juneteenth.
How's it looking for?
18th.
18 works, but
Yeah,
if we could do 26 then. Instead of 25th, I would be in Dover. so-
Okay, the 18th.
I think one a week, right, so we can't do nothing.
So
early.
you- 3, 10, 18, and 26.
And we're assuming that these will all be combo exec session and budget, because you're gonna still be going at it with the.
Maybe one that I just have to miss. I'll be going on vacation at some point in June.
Okay.
I have to,
Did we get the 26th as well?
but
Yes.
Yes.
everything else,
You can send an email right to
So
them.
we have the 3rd, the 10th, the 18th and the 26th, right? So we go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So
Same.
26th is the one.
If you, narrow down your plans and get it to me in advance, and then see if we.
yeah, I mean, the budget is paramount, carry forward.
And then if we don't finalize things till the 26th, we're gonna need Well, I guess if that's a special meeting,
You can make that.
we could have to put it in the announcement that it's possible vote.
Correct.
So if anybody wants to show up.
We have the resolution that says, remember, we got that a couple times and it just kept carrying to the next.
Would it be appropriate to do that, like to just schedule 26/7 all the way through the 30th? Has that ever been done? Just so they're on the book, so they're, it's 7.
Wait, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Yeah.
But 26 is the last one we have. But could we schedule one for 27, 8, 9, or are you saying to extend the session like they do that?
We don't extend past the end of January.
No, extend past then, past the midnight, next day. So,
Vote you right?
can we book on 26? So book one for 27, 8, 29, 30th,
So in the event that.
in case we need. to.
Yeah, the 20th. But, in the event that we, God forbid, could not pass the budget, we could do a couple of things, we could pass the budget as is, and then make future amendments, balance it, and then make future amendments as needed, if we needed to. Or we could go on the current budget and just extend it. Finalize it.
Budget time.
Yeah. These are worst case scenarios.
I know.
We need a.
Yeah, I was just, I wasn't even on council, but it would be like, you weren't able to balance the budget.
But there are things that are.
And Joe made a great point last meeting.
I mean, we have a better idea, certainly maybe by the meeting on the 10th and certainly by the meeting on the 18th. And if we don't know by then, if by the 18th, we don't know, then we realize we may not be able to finalize things on the 26th. At that point, we could go ahead and schedule the 27th and the 28th and get them posted with the 7 days notice, et cetera.
That's.
There's still time to do that.
Right.
It's not, but the decision will have to be made on the night, on the 18th, if we need another meeting beyond the 26th. Hopefully, no.
You keep in mind, so you can come into a meeting, but you can't vote, right? You can now? Oh, because but we do that before.
I thought my understanding was that the Zoom was a special thing under the health
They
emergency.
changed it.
Oh, they changed.
Oh, it is?
Wait, so I could, when I'm in Bosnia for 2 months, I could attend the meetings?
Yeah, you
I'm working from there, so I was planning on missing those meetings in July and August.
When did it change?
I don't know.
That's good news.
Oh,
Good to know.
a while. Okay. That's a good thing.
Joe,
Okay.
I mean,
at least here.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I know the county is remote with many meetings. You know what I mean? So I did kind of know about it, but I guess I didn't think about it. But yeah, most of our meetings, we did, you have to have a host in a public place. And then, but other than
That's
that,
right.
everybody else is remote.
Well, we need that.
We do all that,
because we considered
almost all of it.
that for something,
Yeah.
because
Then we.
no, we wound up not having, but we considered.
I'd like to thank you all for letting me participate tonight. It was educational, it was eye-opening, it was many things, because I won't be able to make all of the meetings due to my work schedule. So, well, because, but I had to request June dates off by May 1st and we didn't have a clue. So I wish you all a lot of luck.
Love it or not.
We're this like 16 years, actually for the last 6 years, we've just been. There's been so many things cut that shouldn't have been probably cut in the first place. And we're now having to put some things back together again. And it's costing us money to put these things back together again. And like, I like, the thing is, okay, we do one now and maybe one in January and we know. So, but it's a hard decision and it's not, no one wants to raise taxes, but it's also unrealistic that we have not, and I take equal responsibility, that didn't even entertain a tax increase any time I was on council.
Well,
We
did-
talked about
We
it.
started to talk about it in late 2019. And then COVID hit in early
Yeah.
2020, and it was like, we can't raise taxes
Right,
in the middle
that's
of the
true, yeah.
pandemic. And,
Yeah, so there's just been a lot of things. And maybe the city's been running on such a slim budget, but it's been very slim in the good places too. And now it's almost like having to pay the piper. You know, so, but thank you. And
well, thank you for your presentation.
like I said,
Okay, are we set? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion for adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Adjourn. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Goodness.
Thank you, guys.
We got off early last night. We made up to.
I sure did.
Thank you for joining us.